Before we start, I also want to warn our viewers that this manhwa contains scenes of domestic abuse in the first few chapters. Please proceed with caution. Now, let's begin. Once upon a time, there were twin girls whose tears turned into jewels. The elder sister cried in sorrow, while the younger sister cried in joy. Their jewel tears were highly coveted for the mysterious power they held, which led to the elder sister being abused. She was locked up in a tower and cruelly beaten until she cried her precious jewel tears. This poor twin's name is Ingrid, and while she suffers alone in captivity, her sister Cornelia was allowed to roam freely and treated like a princess. How messed up is that? Cornelia sees her sister's suffering as part of her duty to their family name, House Randall. When Ingrid tries to complain about her condition, her younger sister even calls her selfish and tells her to clean herself up. Their father will be visiting soon. I'm sure we're all curious about what kind of father would lock up and abuse his own daughter for financial gain. In my eyes, he's already a monster. Ingrid uses one of her jewel tears to heal her wounds, just in time for their father to arrive. Cornelia runs towards him with a bright smile, and he greets her just as warmly. Of course, Ingrid isn't given the same treatment. He looks at her with disgust, claiming that they should put an end to this affair. Ingrid thinks he's finally going to set her free, until a man with an axe appears behind him. Her father is under the belief that the stronger the pain, the stronger the jewel. So he's decided to kill his own daughter to make the most powerful jewels of all. This is insane! I can't believe Cornelia is just standing there watching as her sister is about to be executed. Ingrid begs for mercy, promising to do her job well from now on and endure any pain necessary. But Lord Randall has made up his mind. He's already turning for the door when the executioner raises his axe. At the last moment before her impending death, Ingrid catches her sister smiling. I knew it. She was evil from the start. Surprisingly, that isn't the end of Ingrid's story. The next day, she woke up, back in her tower cell, hoping it was all a dream. But Ingrid was destined to die again, and again, and again. With every death, she shed a jewel so powerful that it turned back time, keeping her trapped in this endless cycle of pain and cruelty. Poor girl. As if all that wasn't bad enough, it turns out this was Cornelia's idea. She was the one who first suggested it to her father, and since he's so obsessed with his pretty younger daughter, he happily agreed. This time, she doesn't bother with the sweet younger sister act when she visits the tower. She hurts Ingrid, enjoying the sight of her pain and even crying tears of joy when she sees her sobbing. Seriously, is she some kind of psychopath? Just like every other time, the scene plays out the same way. Her father arrives. Cornelia runs to him giggling, and the executioner appears. But this time, Ingrid isn't sad. She's angry. When the axe comes down this time, she smiles. Unfortunately, she still wakes up just the same as the last times. But with the help of her tears, she can change her fate. She takes one of the silver jewels to melt away her shackles, a blue one to heal her aching body, and then she lays down to get some rest. Honestly, if I were her, I would already be sprinting out the door by now. For a little context, some people in this world have mystical powers. Some can control the elements, some can see the future, and some, like Ingrid and her sister, shed magical jewels. People with these abilities are called mages and are extremely rare. Even in magical families, not every child is born with special powers. Magical families are usually also noble families who own land and manage their own territories. Despite being a noble and a maid, Ingrid is abused by even the lowest of maids. For the last 6 years, Ingrid has been enduring this cycle of pain and humiliation for the sake of her family, House Randall, who are known for their precious jewel drop powers. Ever since the twins were little, Cornelia was treasured for being cute and smiley, while people called Ingrid gloomy and stupid for always crying. It seems their fates were decided from the start. Ingrid was always treated more like livestock than a daughter, but at least while her mother was alive, she could walk around the mansion as she pleased. 6 years ago, an epidemic claimed her mother's life, and Ingrid cried tears which were more powerful than anyone in the Randall family had ever seen before. They were passed off as Cornelia's to make her seem more talented, but the truth is, Cornelia's tears aren't half as powerful as Ingrid's. This morning, just like every other, Ingrid's maids tries to pick a fight. But this new Ingrid won't just sit there and take it. She uses her silver jewel to disintegrate the maid's broom and threatens her with the same fate. That's more like it. Ingrid demands the maid bring her new clothes and prepare a hot bath. After that, she plans to leave this awful place, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop her. The maid brings one of Cornelia's dresses, and soon Ingrid is walking the halls of her family mansion, causing outrage among the servants. The head maid is particularly angry and confronts Ingrid at once. She's always been scared of this woman ever since she pressed a red-hot poker against her bare skin that made her cry all night. Yeesh! Do they only hire psychos in this family? Ingrid isn't scared of her anymore, so she simply brushes past the maid and tells her to move aside. Our girl's got places to be. When Cornelia wakes up, she is shocked to see her older sister not only in the mansion, but also in a standoff with the head maid. She decides to take advantage of the situation, acting like Ingrid stole the dress that was especially prepared for her. Her tactic works, stirring up sympathy from the staff. The head maid promises to take the dress back for Cornelia, but Ingrid won't budge an inch. The maid starts losing her temper, grabbing her arm and threatening to tell their father. It's the perfect opportunity for Ingrid to prove her powers, so she pulls out another black diamond and disintegrates a huge vase before their very eyes. You see, jewel tears can only be used by the person who they belong to, which is why she discards it as soon as she's finished. The jewel lands close to Cornelia, who makes a huge scene, thinking she's about to be disintegrated. I bet Ingrid enjoyed that look on her sister's face. She walks away as Cornelia struggles to control her rage. The next second, she starts playing the victim once again as the servants rush around her in concern. While Ingrid can create several different kinds of jewels, Cornelia can only make one. It contains the power of temptation, which influences the people around her and makes them practically infatuated with her. While all this is going on downstairs, a young man with pink hair is sipping tea on the second floor when he overhears the disturbance. He comes out of his room to ask the maid what's going on. She's too flustered to explain and suddenly runs off, piquing his curiosity. Meanwhile, Ingrid has finally reached her destination. She enters some kind of servants' quarters where a young girl is lying in bed coughing. Before she started dying and rewinding time, she met a young maid named Abby, who had only just started working for the Randalls. She was especially kind to Ingrid. She brought food to her cell and encouraged her to eat, clearly sympathetic about her situation. Abby was the only one who actually treated her like a noble lady instead of a prisoner. Just that small act of kindness made things a little easier for Ingrid. They got to know each other better each time Abby came. Ingrid reminded her of her elder sister, so she felt close to her right away. Ingrid was worried that Abby would be moved to a different position if she didn't collect enough jewels, so Ingrid tried to cry as much as she could for her sake. But it didn't matter. Abby never came again, and the maid who took her place was just as mean and abusive as the others. Ingrid hoped that Abby had simply returned to her hometown to be with her sister, but of course, it was actually Cornelia who put them apart. She came to visit one day, accompanied by a guard carrying a body. They threw Abby on the floor, barely alive and seriously ill. Cornelia even had the gall to act like she was doing her sister a favor by letting the girls see each other one last time. She's literally pure evil. Frantic, Ingrid asked her sister for some medicine, but Cornelia said there's no point in giving medicine to someone on death's door. Just then, Abby opens her eyes. She mistakes Ingrid for her older sister Gemma, which sends the poor girl into a frenzy. She begs her sister to bring a doctor, offering to make as many jewels as they need in exchange. Cornelia acts like the sweet, innocent girl, as always, and since Ingrid was still under the influence of her powers, she really believed that her sister would help. And maybe she would have if Abby didn't die right there in her arms. Damn, this manhwa is brutal! Like, is the author okay? Do we need to go check up on them? Because she's literally the devil, Cornelia just watches as her poor sister cries her heart out. She still feels responsible for her death, but now, back in the present, she knows more. With the help of her powers, she can give Abby another chance at life. While she's sleeping, Ingrid lays a bunch of healing jewels over her. In seconds, Abby is totally healed. She wakes up as if nothing ever happened, surprised to see Ingrid standing over her. Leaving her in this awful mansion would be the same as abandoning her, so she helps Abby to her feet. They're just turning for the door when suddenly the pink-haired boy walks in. Does anyone else think this kid looks like trouble? Maybe it's because he looks so much like Cornelia, but I just don't trust him. He offers to help, or at least he pretends to, but the girls walk right past him. Cornelia catches them in the corridor, asking why she took a sick girl out of bed. That's when Ingrid reveals that she has healed her, letting all the used-up gems spill from her hand. Now maybe she'll realize just how powerful her big sis has been this whole time. Cornelia is shocked to find out that the blue jewels can also be used to cure serious diseases. But more than that, she's worried about her sister interacting with whoever that pink-haired boy is. She tries to send her sister back, but frankly, she should know better by now. Ingrid can't be persuaded by her powers anymore. If anything, Cornelia should be more worried about getting out of her way. Instead, she chooses to distract the boy, who she refers to as Lord Zasha. It turns out this boy is from the famous Waldschmidt family, and has the power to conjure ancient fire. He refuses Corneria's attempt to distract him, instead following Ingrid to introduce himself. He already knows who she is, which is kind of a shock considering she's been locked up for 7 years. Most people think she died a long time ago, but Zasha doesn't seem surprised to find her walking around perfectly unharmed. Corneria, quickly becoming the most annoying person in the world, tries to get all cuddly with her twin, coming up with an explanation as to why she's been hidden from the rest of society. Suddenly, a maid comes running, announcing that Lord Randall has summoned his daughters. Corneria is worried that the longer Ingrid roams free, the more likely it is that Zasha will find out who is truly producing the famous Randall jewels. But her attempts to pull her sister away are still not working. She acts all cutesy in front of the others, but gives Ingrid a very dark look, warning her not to be late to the meeting. Does she not realize this girl could turn her into dust right now if she wanted to? When Corneria walks away, Zasha makes a comment about Ingrid's eyes being far more beautiful than her sister's. He even asks if that's the reason they don't get along. Ingrid doesn't have time to stop and chat, but this guy is hella persistent. It's clear that he's found out that she was locked in the tower while her sister was treated like a princess. Even though they just met, he offers her the chance to come and live in the Waldschmidt estate. It's not a bad opportunity, but she can't leave just yet. And first of all, she wants to make sure Abby gets out of the mansion and back to her sister. She tells Abby to go and prepare her things. In the meantime, she answers her father's summons, which is basically just an excuse to corner Ingrid and get her back under control. Lord Randall scolds Ingrid for threatening her sister with her powers. Ever since she was a child, she's been terrified of her father, particularly his eyes. She always wished for him to love his daughters equally and tried her best to earn his affection. When she saw him playing with Corneria in the gardens, she made a beautiful flower crown and brought it to him, hoping he would be proud of her. But the very opposite happened. Instead, he scolded her for picking flowers without permission. What? She's just a little girl. How can you tell her not to pick the flowers? The moment Ingrid started crying, he ordered a butler to pick up her tears. It's just proof that he only ever saw her as a way to make money. Back in the present, Lord Randall seems furious that she no longer fears him, and he gets even angrier when she talks back, claiming she only pushed back against those who threatened her. Which is true. She didn't hurt anyone. Lord Randall is furious and starts yelling at her for making her sister afraid. I don't think Corneria is worried. Look at that smug little smile on her face. She uses her powers to charm her father and asks him to send her back to the tower at once. Randall is totally taken in. I mean, let's be honest, she didn't even need to use her powers. He just wants Ingrid out of his sight as soon as possible, but Ingrid still won't budge. In fact, she asks him how on earth he can dare to give her orders. After all, the jewel drop powers are passed down through the women of their family. As he just admitted, the prosperity of the entire house lies with Ingrid. Shouldn't he be treating her with a little more respect? She goes one step farther and suggests he apologize before telling her what to do. Damn, that's a mic drop moment right there. Lord Randall looks like he's about to have a stroke, so Ingrid says she's going to leave. He can't understand how she's suddenly so bold and forbids her from leaving. Somehow, he still hasn't realized that she doesn't need his permission. At the perfect moment, Zasha arrives and makes a proposal. In front of her family, he formally invites Ingrid to stay at House Waldschmidt instead. Wow, this boy almost has as much audacity as she does. The Randalls are too stunned to speak. Literally. Lord Randall cracks an awkward smile and starts apologizing on his daughter's behalf. He assumes that Ingrid asked him to say this, but Zasha reveals that it was all his idea. He even pretends that Ingrid wanted her father's permission before accepting. Yeah, right. With one look from Corneria, Lord Randall pulls out some of her persuasion jewels. He asks Zasha to reconsider what it is that he's suggesting, but it doesn't work. I don't know how much this guy has overheard, but Zasha seems to know exactly how Ingrid has been treated and isn't affected by Corneria's powers. He points out that Ingrid's name is not recorded on the nation's list of mages, despite her incredible powers. Their father claims that she was originally on the list, but they took her off for her own protection. Like, who would believe that? He sternly warns Zasha not to get involved in House Randall's affairs if he doesn't want to start a fight. At this point, we already know he's not going to listen, right? He literally gets on one knee in front of Ingrid and asks her to come. She looks a little wary of him, and honestly, I can't blame her. What if she gets to the Waldschmidt estate and they imprison her there to do the exact same thing? Then she's gained nothing. So Ingrid refuses, claiming that she can't leave if her father will not give permission. She quietly excuses herself while the whole family watch in shock. I don't know about you guys, but I'm also pretty surprised. Like, is she going to head back to the tower after everything that's happened? We skip forward to 1 week after Ingrid's escape. She's finally managed to secure a carriage for Abby to return to her hometown and bids her only friend goodbye with a teary smile. The former maid asks about her future plans, to which Ingrid mysteriously responds that she's waiting for the right time to act. What? Girl, you could disintegrate everyone in this place if you wanted to. Why is she still hanging around? Although these days, her life is very different. She wears nice clothes and pretty much does whatever she wants. Since her jewel tears are basically funding the entire family, she's pretty much her own bank. So of course, she goes into town to buy herself new clothes. She hasn't been out much and ends up a little lost. She comes across a kind of hot air balloon, remembering one time Cornelia bragged about riding something similar with her father. She tries to turn the handle and finds it locked. Out of nowhere, a dark-haired boy arrives with the key. He opens the door for her and the two have an awkward staring contest before stepping inside together. Ingrid has always wanted to see the moon from outside her tower window, and this floating carriage is the most magical way to do it. Completely ignoring the stranger sat beside her, she drops a single tear, catching the jewel in her hand. Well, if her eyes didn't give away her identity, that sure as heck did. The dark-haired boy pretends not to notice and simply hands her a handkerchief. It's kind of strange, but also somehow a really nice moment. Once they step back down on the ground, Ingrid walks away without another word. While she's back in her tower that night, a mysterious figure sits upon a rooftop with one of her jewels smiling at the moon. What is with these kids? Why are they all so weird? Whoever this person is, they seem to have some connection to Ingrid, and they also have powers of their own. With a click of his fingers, this kid teleports inside the tower, expecting to find its mistress fast asleep. But Ingrid doesn't miss a thing. In fact, it seems she was expecting the boy and even knows his name, Gaspar. Ingrid threatens him with a black diamond, freezing him on the spot. Gaspar seems surprised, but not afraid. He's pretty much the most infamous thief of their generation. How could she not know his name? He uses his powers to sneak into places that would be impossible for other people to penetrate. He's actually a mage, but he calls himself the Phantom Thief. Ingrid met him in a previous timeline when he suddenly appeared in the middle of the night and gave her a mini panic attack. She was so scared that she started crying red jewels, confirming what Gaspar had only ever heard in rumors. He felt sympathy for this poor, clearly abused girl, so he pocketed a few gems and invited her to escape into the real world. She did consider it, but in the most recent timeline she had escaped and still died a horrible death at the hands of Cornelia. So by that point, she was pretty damn traumatized. Gaspar felt bad for her, but did as she wished and promised to never come back. Just like all the others, Ingrid was killed in that timeline too, so she knew he would come again, especially once word got out that the eldest Randall daughter was alive. Despite being threatened, Gaspar seems pretty chill. He's mostly curious about what Ingrid plans to do, hand him over to her father or turn him into dust right here and now. Of course, he'd prefer to get out of this place in one piece, so he gets on one knee and promises to do whatever Ingrid wants, if it means he can keep his life. She even offers him some jewels for the road, so long as he does her one favor. We don't find out right away what that favor was. The next thing we see is Lord Randall running into the dining room the next morning, looking like he's seen a ghost. Ingrid walks in behind him with a bright smile. She holds up a big, shiny purple jewel, and suddenly everything falls into place. Lord Randall is freaking out because he thought he lost his amethyst, but it was actually Ingrid who managed to steal it. I guess the Phantom Thief had something to do with that. The night before, Ingrid explained that the amethyst her father carries was her grandmother's final tear. As we already know, the mages of the Randall family shed very powerful tears when they die, and in their final tear lies a special power. Ingrid's allowed her to travel back in time, but her grandmother's has the ability to repel evil magic. Lord Randall wears it for protection, and one time, that amethyst caused Ingrid's death. Although, at this point, what hasn't? It seems like she's died by everything once. In one timeline, she lost her mind and killed Cornelia and all her servants. She tried to kill her father too, but the amethyst blocked her magic and kept him alive. After that, she was executed for her crimes, and well, we know what happened next. As long as Randall has that amethyst, Ingrid will always be powerless, forced to bend to her father's will. After hearing her story, Gaspar is moved enough to help her. Well, it also kind of seems like he wants to prove his skills. Anyway, back to the present, Ingrid happily walks into the dining room carrying her grandmother's final tear. Her father is horrified, but tries to hide it by thanking her. He seriously thinks she's going to hand it back now after she finally got her hands on his secret weapon? He starts to get suspicious and his tone changes. He demands she give him back the jewel, but instead Ingrid picks up a candlestick, places the amethyst on the table, and smashes it into pieces. No way! Didn't she want to use it for herself? I know that's what I would have done. Lord Randall is absolutely stunned. He falls to his knees, gathering the broken pieces of the amethyst and threatening his daughter. Just to prove that she really doesn't care, Ingrid takes one of her black diamonds and turns the biggest chunk of amethyst to ash. That's a girl boss move right there. Lord Randall almost collapses, which is Cornelia's cue to come running, acting like the precious daughter who fears for her father's health. As he lies there, shaking on the ground, Ingrid tells Lord Randall that she's going to stay with the Waldschmidts for a while, to recover. She even jokingly asks for his permission, as if he's going to say no while she's still holding that black diamond. The poor man looks like he's about to have a stroke. As Ingrid walks away, Cornelia begs him to stop her, to do something. When he doesn't move, she runs to her twin instead, claiming that she can't leave their father in this state. I think she can. Just watch her. Cornelia tries to use her powers of persuasion again, but they have no effect on Ingrid anymore. She shakes her sister off and walks away, leaving Cornelia stunned and confused. Ingrid, on the other hand, is finally free. A few minutes later, she's in a carriage, headed to the Waldschmidt estate. After endless years of suffering, she got revenge against her father and took her life into her own hands. She's wanted this moment for so long. In one timeline, she even tried to cut out her own eye to stop her tears from flowing. How dark is that? Even that didn't work, but it proves how much Ingrid resents her own powers. Despite being able to do incredible things like heal the sick and even turn back time, she has no desire to use or profit from her powers. When she arrives at the Waldschmidt mansion, Zasha is waiting by the gate to greet her with a huge smile on his face. He treats her like a real lady, guiding her gently from the carriage and saying what an honor it is to have her visit. What a little gentleman! He even had a gorgeous grand room prepared for her. It's quite the upgrade from her shabby little tower, huh? He encourages her to explore the grounds freely and can stay as long as she likes. This welcome is totally the opposite to how she's been treated by her own family for the past 7 years. The only catch is that he asks her not to leave the mansion without permission. It sounds a little suspicious, but Zasha makes a good point. If anything happens to her, the Randall family will have the right to demand she return to them. Zasha doesn't want that any more than she does, so that's why he can't have her sneaking off without a guard or some kind of escort. That evening, Ingrid ventures to the library to try to find some useful information for her plan to ditch her powers. But they have pretty much the same books as the Randalls do, plus, with Zasha visiting her every 5 seconds, she can't get much done. She does, however, find the official list of mages. Maybe there's someone with the power to erase abilities? That might help. She stumbles across the profile of someone named Winter Clement, whose ability section has been mysteriously left blank. She's still thinking about it when heading back to her room that evening. Spotting a door that's been left ajar, she ventures inside to discover a trap door which opens to reveal the most suspicious set of stairs you've ever seen. As if that wasn't bad enough, Ingrid can also hear what sounds like screaming coming from the basement. You see? I told you guys, I knew there was something suspicious about that Zasha kid from the start. Our girl is not willing to be fooled a second time, so she takes her first steps down into the basement. Here's something you should know about the Waldschmidt family. They're an ancient line of mages who have the power to manipulate fire. And of all the Waldschmidts, Zasha is said to be particularly gifted. That's how he became the head of the house at just 12 years old. Now you can see why he had so much audacity when he spoke to Lord Randall. In one of her past timelines, Ingrid used the black diamond to escape from her tower, convincing herself that if she could just get out of the Randall estate, she could find a way to be happy. While trying to run away, she bumped into Zasha, literally in the gardens. She almost fell over, but he caught her. Like something out of a romantic movie, he gave her his coat so she wouldn't catch a cold. Ingrid was so touched that a tear fell from her cheek, immediately revealing her identity. Curious, Zasha asked for her name and offered to save her, bending down to kiss her hand. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't trust this boy as far as I could throw him. At that time, Ingrid fell for his charms and ended up in a tiny cell being used for her abilities just like before. Zasha wanted an ability-enhancing ruby, a crimson ruby that could make his ancient flame even fiercer. In exchange for saving her life, Ingrid gave him as many rubies as she could make, but she had no idea how evil he would become with all that power. He used his enhanced powers to threaten her father, but when that wasn't enough, he went back to torturing her for bigger and more powerful jewels. Poor Ingrid had escaped one torment and landed in another. Zasha even had the same idea about killing her to get her all-powerful final tear. Seriously, what is with the people in this universe? Are they all this twisted? Actually, it was Cornelia who let him in on the secret, because, of course it was. In the end, he used his powers to kill her, so Ingrid knows very well what that well-mannered boy is capable of. With that in mind, she ventures into the basement to find a boy trapped in a cell, not unlike the one he once kept her in. Ingrid wastes no time. She tells him to hang on just a little longer. She can't help him now, but she will return soon. I think she knows more than she's letting on. The boy reveals that he is also a mage, though he's not a noble. She could have guessed that much. He must be there because Zasha needs something from him. After discovering the boy in his cell, she goes back upstairs and acts like nothing ever happened. When she next meets Zasha, she gives nothing away. She even says she's been a little bored lately. Conveniently, Zasha has been planning to hold a party for her. Basically like her first debut into society, except they'll only invite mages. It's pretty clear that Zasha just wants a chance to show her off, but Ingrid has her own plans. As soon as she accepts, preparations begin right away. The Waldschmidt housemaids are determined to make her the most gorgeous dress possible, so that she stands out from the crowd. And there will be a crowd. It sounds like Zasha is inviting just about everyone in the noble magical circle. Ingrid asks for the guest list, and she wants to compare it with the official mages list. It would be best if that Clement kid made an appearance, but it can't hurt to make connections with some other powerful mages too. Zasha walks in to find her scanning the list and takes it out of her hands. That's rude. He takes her hand instead, pulling her to her feet. Ingrid had the formal noble education until she was around 10 years old, but after that, well, we know what happened after that. Obviously, she doesn't know any of the latest trending ballroom dances, so he offers to teach her. Actually, he kind of just starts dancing right then and there. He also admits that he invited Corneria, which is a real douche move. At least she won't be able to do anything in such a public social setting. Ingrid asks about the Clement family, acting clueless. Zasha did send them an invitation, but apparently they don't show up to social occasions very often, so it's unlikely they'll attend. They have quite a mysterious reputation. No one knows for sure about their abilities, but rumor has it that they have the power of foresight. Which makes sense. If you could see the future, you probably wouldn't want to spend your time hanging around a bunch of self-obsessed nobles, would you? Zasha mistakes her interest for concern and reassures her they won't be coming. He suddenly twirls her around, catching her perfectly in his arms and telling her to stay close to him at the ball. Yeesh. Ingrid gently pushes him away and spends the rest of the day by herself, trying to remember any relevant information from the gossip Abby used to give her. When the day of the party rolls around, Zasha is busy greeting his guests while Ingrid sneaks downstairs to free the boy in the basement. She destroys the lock on his door and heals him with a blue crystal, removing his shackles. The party is the perfect chance for him to escape while the servants are busy dealing with the guests, so it's now or never. The boy doesn't know her name, and she doesn't know his, but he thanks her for saving his life and promises to never forget the kindness she has shown him. Elsewhere, a young lady who looks suspiciously like the hot air balloon boy is considering Zasha's invitation. Her younger brother, who is in fact the hot air balloon boy, appears and takes the invitation from her hands. If you haven't guessed already, this is Winter Clement, the supposed prophet of the future. Neither of them are particularly interested in attending, even if the Waldschmidt invite did come with a precious jewel as a party token. However, Winter knows all about Ingrid, and since she's ended up at the Waldschmidt mansion, he might just be tempted. While he's deciding, Corneria is already on her way over. She's not exactly looking forward to seeing her sister again. Since Ingrid left, things have gotten a lot worse at the Randall mansion. Lord Randall is taking his anger out on the servants, which means Corneria isn't getting any of that precious attention she's used to receiving. Oh, boo-hoo! Like the little psychopathic princess that she is, she's already dreaming of a way to make Ingrid pay for what she did. She perks up a bit after arriving at the ball. Since she's from a wealthy, powerful family and everyone believes she's their most talented mage, Corneria gets a lot of compliments from the nobles. All the attention seems to be on her again, until Ingrid shows up arm in arm with Zasha and totally steals the spotlight. While Corneria spends the rest of the party glaring at her twin, Ingrid couldn't care less. She's only there to see the Clement family, and so far, it looks like they're a no-show. Corneria tries to put her back in her place, but with everyone watching, she is forced to soften her rage and act polite. While everyone watches, she plays the innocent little sister and walks away, getting totally ghosted by Zasha on her way out. In front of everyone, he asks Ingrid to dance and leads her straight to the floor while the other nobles watch. While he's twirling her, Zasha's grip suddenly tightens. He mentions a little pet he was keeping in the basement, which unfortunately ran away. It's clear that he suspects Ingrid. I guess the fact that the lock and shackles vanished into thin air is pretty suspicious. Ingrid plays dumb. Zasha smiles for the sake of his guest, but he's clearly threatening her. It's kind of like he's warning her of what will happen if she doesn't stay obedient. Ugh, I really can't stand this guy. Ingrid states plainly that she knows nothing about whatever he was keeping in the basement, and they finish to dance to a round of applause of the audience. Cornelia can't stand to watch her sister in the limelight any longer, so she heads outside for some fresh air. Her groupies try to follow, but let's just say she's not in the mood for company. She's so wrapped up in her own thoughts that she bumps into someone on her way out. I think we all know who that is. He helps her up and apologizes, walking away without another word. But in just that short interaction, Cornelia has suddenly decided she's in love with him. I'm telling you, this girl is clinically insane. Meanwhile, Ingrid has been turning down offers to dance all night while looking for the Clement family. Since Winter is the head of the family, she thought he would be hard to approach and changed her target to his elder sister, Grace Clement. She's not a mage, but apparently she's a bit more sociable than her loner brother. That's why Ingrid sent her a special ruby jewel and a personal letter asking her to attend. She's a little disappointed that they didn't show, so she decides to head out. Just as she's turning to the door, Winter himself appears and locks eyes on her right away. His arrival causes quite the commotion. Most people here have never even seen him before, and since the Clement family are a powerful and elusive bunch, the guests can hardly believe it's really him. He walks straight past Zasha, ignoring his host completely and introducing himself to Ingrid alone. She's surprised to find out that the boy from the random night is actually the head of House Clement, but she doesn't show it. She introduces herself formally, acting like they've never met before. He thanks her on behalf of his sister, who couldn't attend because she's not a mage. Ingrid is about to ask him for a dance before stupid Zasha steps in, cutting her off and playing host. Winter abruptly announces his departure, claiming he only came to thank Ingrid for her gift. Zasha invites him to stay longer, but clearly he only wanted to speak to the jewel-tiered daughter of the Randall family. Hoping to catch him outside, Ingrid turns away, but Zasha catches her and asks where she's going. She says she wants some fresh air, shaking him off and insisting she go out alone. Zasha is clearly irritated, but he can't do anything in front of his guests. He promises to send a maid later on with some food for her and watches her go with a stormy look in his eyes. Ingrid is relieved to find Winter still waiting for his carriage in front of the mansion. She runs down to catch up with him, not realizing that Zasha is standing behind her. He sends a spark flying at her shoe, and suddenly, flames leap into the air toward Ingrid. What the heck? Does he want to kill her? Fortunately, the flames don't touch her, but it's still a pretty crazy thing to do. Zasha couldn't have made his point more clearly. He does not want his newest pet getting close with the Clement family. He even accuses her of being on a secret date with another man. Firstly, bro, she's not your girlfriend. Secondly, they didn't even get to talk before you landed a fireball on their toes. Ingrid has been disrespected enough by now and announces her intention to leave the Waldschmidt estate. Zasha acts like this is some kind of breakup, talking about how quickly she's moved on to a new guy. What a creep! Being the crazy weirdo that he is, Zasha isn't going to let her go that easy. At his command, the flames suddenly flare up, almost scorching Ingrid to a crisp. But to his shock, she's able to walk through the fire totally unscathed, holding one of her more precious gems. She actually learned about the powers of this ruby for the first time when she was being burned by Zasha in the past timeline. She tried to use it, but couldn't save herself in the end. Of course, this ruby is also not as strong as her father's amethyst, so it can't withstand a real inferno. But even if Zasha did give her everything he's got, she could just bear the pain and heal herself with a blue jewel. It would be pretty insane, but not impossible. While Ingrid walks through the fire, Winter kind of just stands there watching her silently. He catches Zasha's eyes, making him flinch. There's something very unnerving about a quiet boy who doesn't react to a situation like this. It really gets on Zasha's nerves, so to prove himself, he concentrates the fire even more fiercely around Ingrid. That's when Winter finally steps in. He mumbles something like an incantation, and suddenly the fire disappears. Even the ones in Zasha's hand have gone out. So I guess they were wrong about him having the power of foresight. Winter moves to protect Ingrid and sternly tells Zasha to step down. A threat from the head of the Clement family is enough to make the kid back off. He suddenly switches on the charm once again, flashing one of his charming smiles and turning back to the party. I have a feeling that's not the last we've seen of him, but at least Ingrid is safe for now. She thanks Winter for protecting her and immediately asks him to make a deal. I mean, after that display of power, she would be foolish not to. She tells him about the power-enhancing rubies that she can make and offers to give him as many as he desires if he'll become her ally. Of course, as far as everyone knows, Cornelia is the one who makes the most powerful jewels, but Winter has already guessed that's not the case. In return, Ingrid wants to stay in the Clement mansion. Winter seems a bit flustered by that idea. In fact, he tells her that he has no need for jewels, but she can just come anyway. Maybe he was always planning to invite her? I guess that night on the hot air balloon left a real impression. Ingrid is a little suspicious, as you would be if someone was offering exactly what you wanted for free. But she follows him anyway, and soon they end up at the Clement estate, where Grace is waiting to greet them. She's pretty surprised to see Ingrid beside her brother, and suddenly rushes down the stairs to call her cute. I guess she's not as cold and serious as she looks. While snuggling this total stranger, Grace asks Winter what happened at the ball. He doesn't give her any answer, so she formally introduces herself to Ingrid and thanks her for the wonderful present. She hardly says a single word, but soon Grace is all over her again, calling her the adorable captive princess. Now I can see why Winter is the head of the house and not her. He tells Ingrid that she's allowed to do whatever she wants and then just walks off. She can hardly believe her luck. From her perspective, it seems like he brought her home just to make his big sister happy. But behind her excitement, Grace seems just as confused. Let's be honest, Winter must have some ulterior motive, right? For the time being, Grace wants to get Ingrid a change of clothes and a cup of tea. She's already dragging her up the stairs, away from Winter, who hasn't even looked back once. A peaceful week goes by before she even notices. Ingrid has never had such an easy life and is still struggling to adjust to the Clement household. Winter and Grace live alone since their parents have passed away. They seem to be very close for siblings, something Ingrid hardly knew was possible after growing up with her monster of a twin. Grace is intelligent, friendly, and beautiful, as well as talented in swordsmanship. She seems to have taken Ingrid under her wing and confessed that she works hard in other areas to support the family since she has no magical abilities. It also seems like she has no intention of getting married, which is kind of a slay. Her brother, on the other hand, is impossible to guess. He's just as attractive as his sister, but unless Grace is around, he doesn't really appear, and when he does, he's pretty closed off. It's making Ingrid even more confused. He must have some reason for allowing her to come and live with him, but so far, he's shown her absolutely no interest. A little frustrated, she decides they need to have a conversation and hunts him down. For a while, she just sort of follows him until he vanishes behind a mysterious-looking door. She's about to go inside when Grace suddenly catches her wrist. She uses the excuse that it's dinner time, so Ingrid fires back and says Winter should come too. Grace goes on a whole speech about how she wants her new adoptive sister to relax while she's staying with the Clements, and she can do whatever she likes with their full support. For Winter to have picked her means she's special in some way, otherwise he would never have allowed this situation to unfold. But aside from all that, Grace tells her not to enter that room. She doesn't give any kind of explanation, just leads Ingrid back down the corridor without another word. Isn't that just going to make her more curious? If I were her, I'd already be planning to come back at night. And that's another thing. Why are the doors you're not supposed to enter always the most obvious? I'm getting distracted. Anyway, back to the Randall estate. Corneria's life continues to go down the drain. Well, not really, but you wouldn't know it from the way she's acting these days. She's currently stomping on flowers in the garden, furious that her twin managed to find another powerful noble boy to ally with. She begins to wonder if Winter came to the ball for that reason, or if Ingrid managed to persuade him using her jewels as leverage. Out of nowhere, Zasha appears, surprised to find the always smiley Corneria in a bad mood. He promises to cheer her up with a good story, something to make her smile. Oh dear, if these two team up against Ingrid, things could get bad. At first, Corneria is shocked he even has the audacity to suggest it. After all, this is the guy who snuck her sister out of the house and then lost her to an even more troublesome family. Shouldn't he be ashamed? Zasha doesn't seem to care what she thinks. The important thing is that they both want the same thing, to separate Ingrid and Winter. Now Corneria is more interested, but she doesn't get what's in it for her. But she agrees to hear him out, mainly because if things go wrong, she can blame it all on him and play the innocent little girl card again. So Zasha explains his proposal. He already knows that Corneria's ability is temptation, using her jewels to persuade other people to her bidding. If she were to enhance this ability with one of Ingrid's powerful rubies, then she could even control multiple people at once. That would make her a much bigger threat, so of course, Corneria is in. But how do they plan to get their hands on the ability-enhancing rubies without Ingrid? Speaking of which, the talented mage is reading in the Clement mansion when she's summoned by Grace. She did in fact go back to that secret door the other day, but the lock was too strong for her to get in. She's just considering breaking it with her black diamond when she reaches Grace, who greets her with a friendly smile as always. She went slightly overboard and ordered Ingrid a whole new closet worth of dresses. I mean, let's be honest, she really just wants to play dress up with her new bestie, but it's still nice of her. They try on outfit after outfit. Grace says she looks good in every one, but Ingrid is more interested in the family portrait on the wall. She asks Grace if the reason her brother can live however he wants is because of his abilities. But she dodges the question, saying she should ask him herself. Yeah, As if that's an option, he's hardly around in the first place. Grace teases that she could also just marry him, in which case she'd have the right to know everything. Then her big sister-in-law could give her all the answers. I love this girl. She's so unserious. Winter himself walks in to find his sister treating their guests like a perfect little dress-up doll. He's too shocked for words, but doesn't comment on the scene. A visitor has arrived for Ingrid, so he leads her out of the dollhouse and into a private room. And what do you know? It's the boy from Zasha's basement. I can't believe he made it out alive. Finally, we might get some answers about what that sneaky kid is up to. He formally introduces himself as Chris Blaine, a mage of creation. He seems miraculously healthy for someone who was locked up and tortured just a week ago. Chris is incredibly grateful to Ingrid for freeing him. He still doesn't really understand how he himself ended up in that cell. He just told Zasha that he didn't want to work for him and somehow he would end up being held hostage. Anyway, he didn't come to tell that story. He only came to give her a gift as a token of his appreciation. He hands her a small box containing a necklace and asks her to try it on. The moment she puts it on, the necklace totally transforms. It turns out this necklace was forged by Chris. It's designed to adjust to a shape that most suits the wearer, and since Ingrid is the jewel tier mage, the necklace morphed, leaving a space for her to place a jewel. That's a light bulb moment for Ingrid, who realizes why Zasha wanted to capture this boy. He must have wanted an accessory that could display one of Ingrid's jewels. He must have been planning all this for quite some time. Seeing her expression, Chris is worried she doesn't like it. Ingrid assures him that the necklace is beautiful, but she doesn't want to accept it. Winter can tell she's uncomfortable, so he politely asks the boy to be on his way. I kind of feel bad for this kid. He came all this way to give her a present and now she doesn't even want it? Ingrid tries to give it back as he's getting in his carriage, but Chris practically begs her to take it. He needs to pay her back in some way, and this necklace is all he can give. He also asks subtly if Ingrid is really happy with the Clement family, or if she's being held against her will. See? He's such a sweetie! Despite the many rumors about House Clement, Ingrid assures him she's perfectly fine and sends him home with a smile. As his carriage disappears, she asks Winter why he let her stay in his home when the others are so clearly unwelcome. He seems to know a lot about her, especially in terms of her powers. But as always, he avoids all her questions. Instead, he compliments her necklace. Ingrid seems to think it doesn't suit her, but as Winter points out, it literally redesigns itself to suit the true self of the wearer, so just accept it, girl. You're gorgeous inside and out. Winter walks back through the gardens where he finds his sister practicing her swordsmanship. For some reason, the look on her face gives him flashbacks to their parents' deaths. He was only young at the time, and Grace single-handedly comforted him, taking on the role of mother and father at the same time. Even before their passing, both Grace and Winter took on a huge amount of responsibility for kids. Winter was always told by his father that their family's power was the most important secret of all, one he should absolutely never share. The previous head of the family, Winter's father, didn't have especially strong powers, but he was a kind and respectable man who raised his children well and supported his family with love and care. But one day, an epidemic struck the nation. The Clement family was not spared. Their mother fell gravely ill. Winter was still young at the time, so Grace stepped up to comfort and reassure him in her place. It must have been hard for her too. The illness was so contagious that they couldn't even visit her in case they caught it. Even though she was terrified herself, she comforted her brother and promised everything would be fine. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. About the time their mother's illness was worsening, a white-haired mage appeared and offered Winter the chance to cure her. All he wanted in exchange was the truth about the great Clement family's powers. You see, kids, this is why we don't talk to strangers in the woods. Winter was a good kid and refused the man at first. But when he returned to the forest, the mage proved that he did, in fact, have powerful healing abilities. He was so desperate to save his mother that he gave away the secret. Initially, nothing happened. But when the sun was highest that day, things shifted in the Clement household. You see, the Clement house are weakest in the daytime. Sensing a disturbance, Winter's father hid his son, ordering him not to come out until his father said so. From inside the closet, Winter couldn't see what was happening, but he recognized the voice of the white-haired mage, followed by horrible noises. Eventually, he heard the guards calling for him and came out to find his father's body lying on the ground. Damn! Just when I thought this manhwa couldn't get any darker! Winter was distraught. He felt like it was all his fault for revealing the truth about their family. But to this day, they've never found the white-haired mage. And the rest of society still don't know about their powers. So even now, no one can tell what his true intentions were. Their mother passed soon after hearing of her husband's death. As if Winter didn't feel bad enough already, now he had the weight of both parents on his shoulders. But there was no time to mourn. Almost immediately, he took on his father's role and threw himself into his studies. In those first few years, Winter learned the hard way that most mages can't be trusted. But Ingrid is different. He seems to know about her childhood and feels a sense of kinship with her. They both had awful traumatic childhoods and both suffered due to magic. But how does he know all of that? I don't know about you guys, but I really need some answers. Especially because this boy keeps doing weird stuff, like staring at the moon with one eye in the middle of the night. Is he recharging or something? Is he some kind of lunar-powered battery? I'm so confused. As he's leaving, he runs into Grace, who asks him about Ingrid. They both know why she's staying with them, but she reassures Winter that their guest has no bad intentions. Winter already knows that because apparently, he just knows everything. What he might not realize is that the great and infamous Phantom Thief has just snuck into Ingrid's bedroom. Don't panic, guys. She actually invited him. She gets out of bed, warning him to keep his distance while Gaspard jokes that he prefers older girls anyway. Ew! Ingrid summoned him because she needs his help. Gaspard's ability is spatial movement, allowing him to teleport between locations regardless of the physical obstacles involved. She plans to use him to get past that mysterious secret door she so desperately wants to open. She asks Gaspard to return tomorrow at noon. Since Winter most often goes in that room at night, their best bet is during the day. They meet again the next day when Winter heads out and Grace goes off to her training. With a click of his fingers, Gaspard teleports her inside the secret room. But Ingrid is surprised. The room is pretty and bigger than she thought, but it's kind of empty. It's surrounded by glass, with a large space in the ceiling for light to shine through. Ingrid suspects that Winter's powers have something to do with gaining knowledge, which might explain why he was staring at the moon like that. But that doesn't explain how he managed to erase Zasha's flames. And if he really is all-knowing, then that would mean he also knows she's made it inside the room. Uh-oh, busted. For a moment, Ingrid just stands there staring at him. Then she apologizes. Winter doesn't seem upset. He probably knew that even if she did make it in here, she wouldn't learn anything. But even so, the fact that he's forgiven her, the fact that he seems to know so much about her, makes Ingrid really uncomfortable. She asks why he didn't stop her, if he's surprised to find her here. He certainly was surprised that she used Gaspard to get in, but other than that, he is calm and collected as always. He only asks what she wants. Why did she ask to come here? Why does she want to know his power? What would she use them for? Thinking back to her horrible past, all those timelines in which she was cruelly murdered, she tells Winter that she wants to get rid of her powers. She was hoping he could make them disappear somehow. Winter points out that if she never cried, then she wouldn't need to get rid of her powers. But that's kind of a big ask. Doesn't he know what she's been through already? Ingrid has plenty of reasons to cry, but she never thought of it that way before. Winter confesses that his power cannot grant her wish, but he is willing to help her find a way to fulfill it. He only asks her to wait. After all, it's kind of a big mission. Who knows when or if he will even be able to complete it? Winter walks away, still the king of vagueness. Just as he leaves, he warns her that he didn't tell Grace about Gaspard. And it's a good thing he mentioned it, because the poor thief is currently standing in front of her with a sword at his throat. Grace is in full-on protector mode, deeply concerned to find an intruder in this highly secure mansion. Gaspard, on the other hand, is still smiling, as if this is all kind of funny. He even remarks on how cool it is to run into a female knight. Which, yeah, it is kind of cool, but slightly less important than the fact that she's holding a blade to his throat. He tries to explain that he was invited to the Clement mansion by someone who lives here, which makes it pretty damn obvious who's responsible. There's no way Winter would ever invite a stranger into their home, so it had to be Ingrid. Gaspard doesn't explain exactly why he got the invite, but promises he wasn't breaking and entering. From judging by his attitude alone, Grace can tell he's not lying. But as soon as Gaspard lets his guard down, she raises her sword even higher. She's not going to move a muscle until she's convinced he's not a threat. Yikes, Ingrid better be sprinting through the halls right now. At just the right moment, the girl of the hour arrives, shocked to find her hostess and assistant locked in such a tense exchange. The famous Phantom Thief, delighted to have a distraction, vanishes into thin air the moment Grace looks away. He reappears beside Ingrid, grinning like a kid, while she apologizes and confirms that he was telling the truth. Somehow, after this whole mess, Ingrid is allowed to continue staying with the Clement family. Which is pretty wild when you think about it. I mean, she literally broke into the one room they asked her not to and invited a notorious thief into the home. Even I would kick her out. Funnily enough, Gaspard seems to have taken a liking to Grace and comes around frequently to bring her gifts. The eldest Clement doesn't seem to feel the same and tries to ignore him as he starts talking about the fair that will soon be held in the capital. It's kind of a big deal since it's only held once every few years, so Gaspard suggests they all go together. Obviously, he's just trying to get some more time with Grace, but the Clement family aren't exactly the festival-going type. But there's also a treasured collection of magical artifacts to be displayed this year, which piques her interest. She then asks Ingrid's opinion, and to their surprise, she agrees. Actually, she had plans to go already anyway. And if by now you're wondering why someone like Ingrid would want to go to such a busy public setting, don't worry, you're not the only one. When the day of the festival rolls around, Grace ends up enjoying herself more than expected. Ingrid also can't help but feel excited. In all her traumatic lifetimes, she hasn't had much chance to enjoy festivals or take a walk around the city. The girls pair off, giving Gaspar and Winter a chance to talk for the first time. Gaspar tries to strike up a conversation, but predictably, Winter isn't in the mood to chat. He gives the phantom thief the cold shoulder and joins Ingrid, asking why she wanted to come to the fair. For once, this isn't part of some grand plan she has. Actually, she was invited by her sister. Cornelia's intentions weren't clear, and honestly, I don't know why she even accepted it, but one thing's for sure, Ingrid isn't here to play nice. I mean, when is she ever? As it turns out, the Randall family invested a lot of money into the fair this year, so Cornelia has probably been using it as an excuse to plan something, maybe even to get back at her. The main attraction of the fair is a giant castle made out of ice, somehow kept in shape by a water mage. It's only after seeing it that they realize Gaspar has slipped off, probably up to no good as per usual. The Clement kids don't seem to care that he's gone, they just want to go inside and see the castle. But the moment Ingrid tries to step inside, she's stopped by the guards. They must have been told not to let her in, which is hardly surprising. But this Ingrid isn't the same girl they locked in a tower for all those years. She orders the guards to move, announcing that she was given an invitation. The guards don't care. Apparently, she's not the kind of person they let inside exhibitions, whatever the heck that means. One of the guards is being particularly snobby with her, and one look in his eyes tells Ingrid this guy is under her sister's control. So this was her plan. Gosh, she's so petty! Couldn't she think of something a little more original? It's stupid, but Ingrid can't do much about it without making a scene. Winter and Grace went inside without her, so she'll just have to wait until they come out again. Fortunately, that doesn't take long. Winter notices her absence immediately and intimidates the guard. He doesn't even have to use his powers. The reputation of House Clement is strong enough to make the guard a bumbling wreck. While that doofus is still stuttering, he grabs Ingrid and pulls her in, ordering them to let her pass. Damn, this boy has some serious riz! Just one look and that guy's knees started shaking. When the girls reunite, Grace acts like they've been apart for months and seems very concerned for her adoptive younger sister. They decide to hold hands so they won't get separated and step inside the main palace. The interior is beautiful, but everywhere Ingrid looks, people are staring at her. No one can say a thing when she's with Winter and Grace, but still, it's not exactly comfortable. A little boy runs past them looking for his mother and suddenly trips. The second he starts to cry, Ingrid is on her knees with him, asking if he's all right. He got a little scraped up, so she uses one of her jewels to heal the wound, asking him to close his eyes so he doesn't see. His mother appears a moment later, pulling with her an adorable younger sister. Her son tries to explain what happened, but fortunately, she doesn't believe him. I mean, it does sound ridiculous that this random girl healed his wound in an instant. Still, the woman is grateful to Ingrid for comforting her son, and thanks her wholeheartedly. Meanwhile, Cornelia has just arrived at the castle. She's in a very good mood, since she thinks her sister was humiliated by being denied entry. She even thanks the guard on duty for his hard work. As if that wasn't enough, she uses her powers of persuasion to take over his mind and convince him that her sister is dangerous. Ugh, she's actually so cringe. As if being a horrible person wasn't bad enough, does she have to act cute like that? There's something about her expression that's making me sus. Is it just me, or does anyone else think she has something more up her sleeve? She hangs around the castle for a while longer. A kind-looking man runs up to thank her for giving him an aquamarine gem. Apparently, his daughter is sick and the gem helped to keep her illness stable. Cornelia plays all sweet and innocent as usual, acting like the gem came from her when really it was her sister's. It's doing wonders for her reputation, though strangely, she uses the opportunity to bring up her sister again. The man has clearly bought all the rumors about Ingrid and thinks she's a horrible person. You probably won't be surprised to hear that Zasha and Cornelia started a smear campaign to totally ruin Ingrid's image. Now everyone thinks she's an evil little girl who was mean to Zasha and is now using the Clement family to get by. Cornelia is so messed up in the head that she actually kinda believes her own narrative. So when other people confirm it, it's like music to her ears. But the bigger picture they're trying to paint is this. If they ruin Ingrid's reputation so badly, it'll be easier for Corneria's persuasion powers to take hold and turn society totally against her. Then Ingrid will have to return to the Randall family and keep making gems for them. So she keeps spreading her lies, convincing the nobles one evil smile at a time. Of course, the Clements have already caught on that Corneria and Zasha are planning something. Ingrid probably knows it too. Nobody knows her sister better than she does. After the fair is over and the trio have temporarily moved into their residence in the capital, Grace takes their guest into town for a little trip. Grace still seems a little tense, so Ingrid asks if she's still annoyed about what happened at the fair. Obviously, the answer is yes. She's her protective older sister. It's literally her job. Ingrid then asks about her research she's been collecting information for. They know well by now that the upper class is being turned against her, but fortunately, normal people haven't been influenced by the rumors just yet. Ingrid feels a little guilty for involving Grace in this whole mess with her sister, but it's nice to have an ally. After a long carriage ride, they arrive at a mansion belonging to Grace's friend, Barbara. She seems like a sweet, smiley lady, but the moment Ingrid is introduced, she turns suspicious. Wow, those two have really been working hard. Ingrid is a little upset, honestly. How would you feel if everyone you met immediately looked at you like you were some kind of villain? She takes a moment to compose herself before politely introducing herself, then coldly walking past Barbara. Good for her! Why waste time on people who judge before even meeting her? Despite the tension, Barbara acts like a proper hostess and invites him to the garden for tea and cakes. Grace and Barbara are close, so she wasn't expecting there to be an issue with her bringing along a friend. Needless to say, the host soon raises the topic and admits she was surprised to see Ingrid tagging along. Grace does her best to smooth over the awkward feeling, pointing out how much House Randall has contributed to the fair this year. Shouldn't both daughters be treated with the same amount of respect? Apparently not. Barbara has well and truly gone to the dark side. She thinks Corneria is practically an angel, while her sister is just leeching off the Clement household. She literally calls her a parasite. I don't know how the heck Ingrid can sip her tea so calmly while this woman trash talks her right across the table. I know she's under Corneria's spell, but I wish I could give her a slap. Grace is also getting mad on her friend's behalf. Barbara isn't normally like this. She cuts to the chase and asks if something is up. Why is she being so rude to someone she just met without any real reason to doubt her? She keeps pushing for an answer until Ingrid steps in, flashing an aquamarine gem at Barbara, almost blinding her with it. A few seconds later, all the negative feelings she had towards Ingrid have totally vanished, leaving her confused. Ingrid just sits down as if nothing ever happened. It's obvious that someone from a house as noble as Barbara's would become a target for Corneria's plan, so she wasn't really surprised. Still, it's kind of badass that she's not even bothered. After that, they show their hostess that Ingrid isn't half as awful as the rumors said, and ask for details on what exactly people are saying about her. In addition to all that stuff about being a parasite, there's also a rumor that she's been selling Corneria's tears to people through the black market. Well, that's rich coming from her. Her tears are hardly worth anything in the first place. But this is news to Ingrid, who is happy to have a small advantage in this battle. She suddenly announces her departure, giving Grace a look to thank her for the opportunity to gain some more information. Just as they're about to leave, she tells Barbara the truth, that her sister used her magic to deceive and persuade her. She's still confused, even after her guests have gone home. Of course, there's also the possibility that Ingrid is the bad guy and used that aquamarine gem to deceive her. But there's no way Grace would have sat by and let that happen. As if she was summoned, Corneria herself comes to visit a few hours later. She says she has a favor to ask and suddenly steps towards her, pushing her against the wall as she pulls out another gemstone. Oh no, not again! Using her power, she asks Barbara to go somewhere and use her connections, probably to spread some more horrible rumors about her sister. Honestly, for a villain, she's pretty unoriginal. Back at the Clement mansion, Ingrid is heading out when Winter catches her at the door. Somehow, he's already guessed that she's meeting her sister. Must be those all-knowing powers of his. Ingrid is still planning to see her even after the incident at the fair, since Corneria asked to meet her in her letter. Winter, like the rest of us, can't understand why she would even bother meeting her. I mean, it's not like they want to be friends. What's the point of even agreeing to go and see her? Winter is mainly just worried that Corneria has something more up her sleeve. But Ingrid just thinks he's worried about her bringing trouble to the Clement family and promises not to inconvenience anyone. Damn, Girly has some pretty severe avoidant attachment issues. which isn't fun for Winter, who's clearly trying to get closer to her. Ingrid arrives a little later at the cafe Corneria invited her to. All around them, people are gossiping and staring at Ingrid, but the twins just ignore them. It's pretty obvious that Corneria only chose this place to make sure everyone sees how innocent and sweet she's being with her cold twin sister. She's probably hoping to make her lose her calm and cause a scene. She really plays up her cutesy act, claiming she's been worried that her sister is being tricked into doing bad things. Ingrid doesn't even bother trying to save her reputation. She just tells Corneria not to worry and gets up to leave. The nobles are shocked by her behavior. Corneria runs after her, pulling her back and asking her to at least come and visit House Randall. They're displaying jewels from tiers throughout the generations in a special kind of exhibit. She agrees, mostly so she doesn't cause a scene. After the whole tedious affair, Ingrid ends up walking home alone late at night. She's thinking about how Corneria had to act friendly to her sister, even though she has so much hatred for Ingrid. It's almost impressive if you think about it. She's just about to head to the main road to hail a carriage when a thug jumps out of the shadows about to hit her. She turns at just the right moment, using one of her gems to stop the man in his tracks and break Corneria's spell. I don't see how the heck she realized he was coming for her. She must have some kind of spidey sense because she even knows there's another guy waiting around the corner. This is why Corneria made her stay longer, so she could organize an ambush with her fan club. Ugh, she's really just the worst. Ingrid shows the thug her jewels, proving she can take on as many of them as she needs to. He tries to run away, but gets stopped in his tracks when she threatens to burn them both to ashes. But she doesn't want to hurt them. Actually, she asks them to carry out their mission and take her to wherever they're told to bring her. While she's traveling through the streets with two men who tried to kidnap her, Zasha is having a glass of wine with Corneria like a true webtoon villain. He received a report that Ingrid arrived at their designated location, so he thinks everything is going swimmingly. Corneria, on the other hand, doesn't understand why they've gone through all these schemes and plans rather than just killing her sister outright. Like I said, she's Miss Unoriginal. Zasha, on the other hand, has thought this through. They don't want House Clement involved, so they need to make them turn against Ingrid first. And if they can't get them to hate her, they can at least cause a big enough scandal that they will be justified in taking her back. After all, Corneria is her sister. No one will object if her own family makes decisions on her behalf. The rest of this twisted mission is now up to her, and for whatever reason, Corneria seems hella confident. This isn't gonna be good. Meanwhile, Winter's doing his usual nighttime routine of staring at the moon. He seems to know already that Ingrid has been taken captive and wants to get involved. He just wants to help. But after what she said earlier, he's not even sure he has the right to intervene. Lucky for him, his sister isn't half the overthinker that he is. She tells him to get out of his head and do what he wants to do, which is obviously to butt in and go save his girl. Thank goodness for Grace. But if you've been imagining Ingrid tied up in a warehouse somewhere, you'd be mistaken. For some reason, she was taken to a theater where a masquerade auction is taking place. She realizes this is a black market auction selling illegal items among the rich and noble of society. This all feeds into Corneria's lies. She spreads a rumor that she was selling her family jewels on the black market, so Ingrid is expecting the jewels to be brought out soon. Her presence in the theater is supposed to give some credibility to the rumors. So far, Ingrid is playing along, and as planned, Corneria is on her way to the theater herself, probably planning to cause a big scene and condemn her sister for her sins. Is it just me, or does anyone else think that this is also predictable, even for Zasha? I mean, this is like Corneria's dream, so she's hardly questioning it. She bursts through the doors, already calling her sister's name and demanding an explanation. But to her surprise, Ingrid isn't in her seat. She's on the stage, drawing everyone's attention to Corneria and turning the Randall jewels into dust. I don't know what the heck she has planned, but just seeing Corneria look so shocked was totally worth it. And it wasn't just Corneria who was shocked. The auctioneer was absolutely floored when she came on stage and destroyed the most valuable item of the entire event. When Corneria arrived, her act fell apart. She became furious. She never expected Ingrid to still have a jewel left. Still, she attempts to salvage the situation by using this shock to her advantage. She plays her usual innocent character, making it seem like her sister stole one of Corneria's own jewels to come here and destroy a Randall family treasure. She even manages some crocodile tears. Ugh, someone give her an Oscar so we can all move on already. Ingrid feels the same, complimenting her acting skills and pointing out that she wouldn't have turned the jewels to ash if she were really responsible for any black market dealings. The way she tells it, she heard about a Randall family treasure being sold and decided to make sure they didn't end up in the wrong hands. Cornelia fires back that it's none of her business since she decided not to be part of House Randall anymore. And if Ingrid says she didn't bring the rubies here, then just who is she accusing? Ingrid is about to defend herself, but then she hears the audience whispering. They don't seem to believe that anyone other than Ingrid would have ever brought the Randall rubies to a black market auction. Yet again, Ingrid has somehow fallen further in the public eye, while her sister's image is only becoming more and more pitiful. It's too seamless to be true. Suddenly, she realizes that all of these people must be under her sister's control. But her powers were never that strong before. How did she manage to spellbind the entire venue? Her confidence restored, Cornelia scolds her for telling lies, enjoying every word that the awful audience members are saying about Ingrid. For a moment, the elder sister looks genuinely hurt, but only for a moment. The next second, she pulls out a fistful of her jewels, using them all at once to pull the nobles out of their trance. They start pulling off their masks, no idea how they even ended up here. Cornelia is just as shocked as they are. Ingrid is batting back everything she throws, and it looks like her grand scheme is finally about to go up in smoke, which means it's time to pull out all the stops. Dramatically, she drops to her knees and starts to sob, acting like this is all part of Ingrid's plan to ruin her image. Although her acting is just as pathetic as before, Ingrid is now in a difficult position. And because she doesn't even try to comfort her sister or deny what she's saying, the nobles once again start to believe that Ingrid is the bad guy. No, come on! Don't these people have brains? For the first time, Ingrid realizes the truth, that everyone has always been on Cornelia's side. Even without using her powers, the world is naturally against her. Even when they were younger, Ingrid was always shunned while her sister was celebrated. I mean, if you think about it, their powers practically guaranteed that it would always be that way. But that doesn't mean Ingrid should just give up. Even though she's been kidnapped, beaten, heck, even killed several times over, she has to keep fighting. On shaky legs, she takes a step towards her sister, hoping to defend herself once more. But then, who should show up but Lord Winter Clement himself? You think he chose the most dramatic time on purpose, or is he always just fashionably late? As always, Winter was exceptionally thorough, blocking the back door and any hidden passages before he even arrived. But before entering the auction hall, he got cold feet again, remembering how Ingrid insisted that she didn't need his help. Thankfully, he got over his silly insecurities and decided to follow his gut instinct, ordering his soldiers to wait outside momentarily so he could enter alone. Just as he was about to walk in, Gaspar showed up. I guess he felt left out. If there's one thing this guy can't stand, it's missing out on juicy drama. He knew Winter wouldn't enter on his own, so he used his magic to teleport Winter directly onto the stage behind Ingrid, where he saw how much she was suffering in front of a crowd that hated her. He reaches out, pulling her close to let her know she's not alone, that she doesn't have to listen to any of this nonsense. Understandably, Ingrid was shocked to see him. Winter didn't offer an explanation. He just took her hand and said he was worried about her. Okay, did anyone else just get butterflies? There's just something about tsundere boys admitting their feelings in a moment of honesty. While these two are having a little moment, staring into each other's eyes, Cornelia is on the floor beside them, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. How did Lord Winter literally teleport onto the stage? And more importantly, why is he holding her sister's hand? Managing to bottle her anger for like the 8th time that day, she decides to turn this into an opportunity instead, hoping to embarrass Ingrid in front of him and ruin their relationship. She gets to her feet, greeting him politely and apologizing for her sister's behavior. She explains the whole selling jewels at the auction thing, but to her surprise, Winter wants to hear Ingrid's own side of the story. He gives her the floor to explain herself at last, but Ingrid decides to pass the opportunity on to Barbara instead, pulling her up on stage so that she can testify firsthand to what Cornelia has been doing all along. Which is hella smart if you think about it. We've already seen how public sentiment is always against Ingrid, but if someone popular and trustworthy like Barbara explains, people might actually believe her. She explains to the audience that all of them have been forced here by Lady Cornelia, who used the jewels on her chest to deceive and persuade them to do her bidding. It doesn't take long for everyone at the auction to realize that their memories went blank after meeting her. Panicking, she tries to recover by pointing out that her role in organizing the fair means she was bound to meet a lot of people. But Ingrid, who's had enough of all these lies and excuses, provides a quicker way for them to prove who's telling the truth. They can cry, right here, right now. Then the world will finally know whose jewels the Randall family has been using all this time to gain their power and status. Damn, would she really break her promise just to put these rumors to rest once and for all? Cornelia points out that she can't cry if she's not happy. And honestly, Ingrid probably couldn't either, since she's not sad right now. She's relieved and proud. Finally, the truth is out there. She just has to hope that people won't be stupid enough to fall for her sister's tricks again. The next moment, the Clement soldiers storm in. Cornelia, who thinks she's about to be arrested, starts tugging on Winter's arm, begging him to have mercy. Girl, you should have some self-respect. Besides, of all the people you should be acting cute with, Winter is not one of them. He shakes her off, reminding her they're not that close. He does, however, know enough about Ingrid to believe that she's innocent and coldly turns away from Cornelia in front of their audience. He announces her crimes for everyone to hear. Illegally trading magical items, kidnapping her own sister. She should have been arrested a long time ago already. The guards get a hold of Cornelia, pulling her away, still kicking and screaming. The rest of the attendees are escorted home by Imperial guards, while Barbara apologizes for her first impression with Ingrid and promises to go and talk to the other nobles on her behalf. If anyone can reverse the damage done and spread some good rumors for once, it's Barbara. While Cornelia is leaving, she swears all this was Zasha's doing, but let's be honest, that man would have made sure not to leave a scrap of evidence behind. If Cornelia manages to avoid jail, her reputation will still be ruined. She'll probably be confined to house arrest, though I hope she gets a worse punishment than that. Once her monster of a sister is gone, Ingrid remembers that cute moment they had where Winter admitted he was worried for her. Brushing it aside, she tells him they should hurry back so they don't make Grace worried. But on their walk home, things are a little awkward. Honestly, when you think about how much she's been through, you can't blame Ingrid for being a little uncomfortable with her emotions. So it's no surprise that all she gets out is a thank you to explain how grateful she feels for Winter coming to save her. He doesn't understand what she's trying to say until she tugs on his blazer and admits she's grateful he believed in her. He doesn't make a big deal out of it, just saying he was the first to be saved. Cryptic as always, Winter. Thank you. She wonders if maybe he knew she was innocent because of his powers, but Winter seems to have made a decision based on her personality, not his abilities. He can tell she wouldn't do half the things Cornelia accused her of. She just wouldn't. Ingrid remains unconvinced, so he tries to explain himself. He thinks back to the time she helped the servant girl who worked for the Randalls, or the time she freed the magician stuck in Zasha's basement. I guess his powers must have something to do with infinite knowledge after all. The kind of girl who did those things, who risked herself to help others, she's not the kind of girl Cornelia wants the world to see. That's how he knew. Ingrid can't process any of this. She's not used to people giving her the benefit of the doubt, and it's making her heart pound. She's so overwhelmed that a single tear falls from her eyes. And this one is green, like a turquoise color. She's never made that color before, only blue, blacks, and reds that can destroy or hurt or turn back time. This is the first time she's made a gem like this, and it catches her off guard. Winter, as always, doesn't seem surprised. He gently brushes her cheek, making her blush. She reminds him that her tears become jewels, so there's no need to brush them away. But Winter doesn't care about that. If she's crying, then he wants to comfort her. That's all there is to it. Oh God, he is too cute. I can't handle it. To save herself from turning bright red, Ingrid brushes him off and hurries them along, insisting that she's fine. While she and Winter are having a moment under the moonlight, Zasha was just informed about what happened with Cornelia at the auction. Surprisingly, he's not mad. Actually, he seems kind of happy. Like Ingrid suspected, there's no evidence whatsoever that House Waldschmidt was involved, so he has no reason to panic. Plus, they got back all the rubies that Cornelia put up for auction, except the ones Ingrid turned to ash. So really, he's profited from this mess, and he still has plenty more tricks up his sleeve. And he's not the only one with a hidden motive. You can't tell me Gaspar isn't secretly planning something too. After the mess of the fair and the auction, life returns to relative calm for Ingrid and the Clement family. There is, however, one frequent visitor who keeps inviting himself over. For once, Gaspar needs her help. It turns out that while she was taking on Cornelia at the auction, he slipped into the ice castle for a little late-night thievery. Apparently, the best way he could think of was by dropping a literal firecracker through the middle of the building. Once he'd caused enough of a commotion, he used Ingrid's ruby to break one of the display cases and steal a ring. But when he explains it to Ingrid, he claims it wasn't stealing. He says he only took it back. Of course, he won't explain why he believes the ring belongs to him, and carries on with the story. After checking in with Ingrid and Winter, who had done a great job at the auction, he hurried back to the Clement estate to find Grace pacing in front of the mansion. He could see she was worried about the others, so he assured her that everything had gone to plan and they would be back soon. In return, he got yelled at. Gaspar was so surprised to discover that she was worried about him too. Aw, I'm rooting for these guys too. They're actually kind of adorable. After he disappeared for days, the only one who seemed to be worried about him was Grace. Touched, he blushed and slipped on the ring, which changed his hair to a darker color. Without explaining any of this craziness, he took her hand and got down on one knee. Ingrid and Winter got back just in time to hear him propose to her, promising to never steal again and always keep her happy. But Grace refused. Immediately. Didn't even give it a second to think about it. Poor Gaspar's little heart was crushed, and things have been kind of awkward ever since. Ingrid points out that he did kind of spring it on her. I mean, those two barely know each other. But the Phantom Thief couldn't help himself. Seeing someone as strong as Grace look so scared, he just wanted to help her. Forever. Which is really sweet if you think about it. Ingrid thinks so too, and promises to talk to Grace on his behalf. But she's never given someone relationship advice before. Scratch that, she's never even been in a relationship. Just trying to figure out how to even broach the subject makes her head spin. Once she actually steps foot in Grace's room, all sense of caution goes out the window, and she just asks outright, why did she refuse Gaspar? Nice one, Ingrid. Real smooth. Despite the shock factor, Grace is kind of touched that Ingrid has started thinking about others besides herself. So she answers honestly. She knows the truth about that ring. If the true heir wears it, his hair will turn deep purple. That is, the heir to the Tuane family. Not many people know about the Tuane family, since they acted mostly in secret because of their magic. But despite the suspicious nature of their powers, they always helped the world when it was most in need. But when the world was most peaceful, people became wary of those who could vanish and whose appearance could change with the slip of a ring. The Tuanes were falsely accused, and many of them were executed. The only ones to object were the Clement family. In the end, the Tuane family name was cleared, but those who remained were so angry and hurt that they gave up their noble title and vanished from society. Which is all very intriguing, but it doesn't explain why Grace refused Gaspar. When Ingrid pushes her, she admits that she did it for his own sake. If Gaspar has any intention of restoring his house and family name, he can't marry the eldest daughter of the Clement house. For her position, Grace has actually had a lot of marriage proposals, but she's had to refuse them because of her duty to Winter and the house. It's damaged her confidence a bit, and now she doesn't think of herself as cute or pretty anymore. Ingrid can't stand to see her acting so strong when all she wants to do is be a girly girl. She stands up suddenly and shoves a giant teddy bear into Grace's arms, calling her super cute. And even if she wasn't, it's okay. Gaspar prefers older girls anyway. That night, Ingrid lies in bed thinking about how much her personality has changed lately. Her heart has never been so warm. She can't help but trace the feeling back to Winter and the strange turquoise gem. While she decides to test its abilities, her sister is indeed under house arrest in the Randall mansion. Her father won't see her. Zasha has basically vanished and she's being locked in her room. She's starting to feel alone. Truly alone, just the way Ingrid used to feel. The idea is so horrible that she starts to cry and discovers that she too can produce a new kind of tear. Uh-oh. If this one is powerful like Ingrid's, then this could get really ugly. Back at the Clement mansion, Winter has been so tied up with the mess from the Black Auction that he and Ingrid have hardly been able to meet. The young lovebirds are starting to miss each other, so Winter decides to try and catch her at dinner that evening. Ingrid is too stubborn to give him a visit. Even when Gaspar catches her staring off into space and encourages her to find him, she still says no. But that doesn't stop him teasing the young mage, saying they should all get married and then Ingrid will become his little sister. Wait, that would actually be so cute. Ingrid clearly disagrees, but as usual, Gaspar decides to stick his nose in her business and teleports her into Winter's office. And not just in his office, but on his very lap. Gaspar really just knows what the people want and does it. Everyone, say thank you to Gaspar. Ingrid, naturally, is humiliated and climbs off his lap at once. She tries to explain what happened, how she was worried since he's been so busy, and Gaspar ended up sending her here. All Winter hears is that she was worried and catches her wrist before she can leave. He was about to take a break anyway and asks her to stay for a cup of tea. Thank goodness he has a bit of sense, otherwise these two would never get anywhere. He thanks her for stepping in with the whole Grace situation. Ingrid asks if he would be okay if she actually did get married, And Winter says he actually wants his sister to start caring about herself. If marrying Gaspar would make her happy, then he's all for it. Aw, what a caring little brother! Ingrid is a little jealous of their relationship. She tries to imagine what it would be like if she and Corneria were that close. How different things could have been. Though Winter reminds her not to be jealous. The reason he and Grace became so close is because of their father and mother passing away. They had no one to lean upon except each other, though Winter couldn't really lean on anyone because of his powers. For the 1000th time, Ingrid realizes they're not so different after all. Both of them have been tormented by their powers, and both are struggling to protect the things they love. After hearing how badly Winter wants to avenge his father, Ingrid reassures him that she's on his side and will always listen when he wants to talk. Winter thanks her and just hopes they can have tea together from time to time. Meanwhile, Zasha's secret plans are progressing further with the arrival of a strange guest with white hair. This white-haired mage was tasked with bringing a certain item to Zasha. An item that looks suspiciously similar to poison. But the mage, whose name is Felix, won't give it over that easy. He jokes that Zasha is looking a bit under the weather and asks if he'd like a different kind of medicine to perk him up. Zasha insists that he's fine. He's just been on edge after receiving an unexpected visitor a few days ago. Seems like Winter finally got sick of beating around the bush and went straight to the source of the trouble. He didn't waste any time, ignoring Zasha's attempts at playing cute. Even though there was no evidence left behind, Winter knew that Zasha was the real orchestrator of the mess between the Randall twins, and warned him not to overstep his boundaries. Oof, someone's finally getting serious. Zasha teased Lord Clement, asking if he'd suddenly gained confidence because he has Ingrid on his side. After all, her jeweled tears could bring immense power and wealth to anyone if she wanted to help. Winter makes it very clear that he's not helping Ingrid because of her jeweled tears, which Zasha finds impossible to believe. He's such a psycho that he just can't get it. That is, until he considers that Winter might have fallen for her. Zasha says it's a waste for a mage like him not to make use of her abilities, making Winter so mad that he utters a spell, putting out the fire in his hand and warning him to stay the heck away from Ingrid. That's right, Winter, you tell him! Is it just me, or does anyone else really want to see this guy in battle? I want to see what he can do! Ever since Winter's visit, Zasha has been a little tense, which explains why Felix picked up on his bad mood. But he doesn't explain what happened between the mages and simply takes the vial of red liquid. As it turns out, Felix isn't a full-fledged mage, but he can produce alchemical compounds which are almost as strong as real magic, making him a very useful asset. The alchemist asks if he's planning to use this poison to assassinate Lord Clement, which is kind of insane even for Zasha. He still doesn't really know what the Clement abilities are, so he's being careful not to speak too clearly about his intentions. If Winter really does know everything, then he'll see an assassination attempt coming from a mile away. But Zasha has faith that no matter how powerful the famous Winter Clement is, he must have a flaw somewhere, and one way or another, he's determined to exploit it. Back at the Clement mansion, Ingrid still hasn't figured out what her new turquoise gem is capable of. As with all her jewels, it can only be used one time, so she doesn't want to waste it. She's just wondering if she could get someone to help her test it when a familiar voice calls out to her. It's Abby, the servant girl she saved from the brink of death back in the Randall mansion. Ingrid is delighted to see her, not only alive, but looking better than ever. She did such a good job of healing her that Abby made a full recovery and hardly even remembers being sick. But how did she end up here, you ask? Winter, of course. That kid really doesn't miss a trick. Ingrid assumes that Grace must have told him about her because she still doesn't realize he's basically omniscient. But even so, it's kind of cute that he invited Abby just for her. Back to business, Abby offers to help her, hoping to return the favor for saving her life. So Abby gives her the gem and asks her to try using it. A tear shed in a happy moment shouldn't be dangerous, but Ingrid is standing by, ready and waiting in case anything doesn't go to plan. Abby seems a little nervous, but agrees to use the jewel for her sake. With a little shine and a sudden breeze, Abby breaks into a smile. It made her happy. The moment the emerald shone, it conjured happy memories and blew all her troubles away. Well, that's sweet. Kind of useless if you ask me, but still sweet. Ingrid thanks Abby for her help, already wondering what situation she might be able to use the jewel in. That is, if she can ever make one again. She'll need Winter for that. Speaking of whom, Lord Clement is watching Ingrid and Abby nearby with Gaspar, who's hanging in a tree for no apparent reason. He just refuses to stand normally, that guy. Apparently, Winter put his pride aside and asked Gaspar how to give Ingrid some kind of gift, since he didn't know what she'd like. Grace showers her with clothes and shoes, and Ingrid doesn't really like flowers or sweets. So Gaspar came up with a genius idea of summoning Abby, who he remembered from the Randall mansion. Winter was worried that she wouldn't like the gesture, but one look at her expression tells him otherwise. Gaspar tells him to be confident, but Winter can't stop thinking about what happened at the auction and all the hardships she's been through in her life. He'll do anything it takes to keep her from crying again. Ingrid only notices him hanging out nearby when a servant comes up to him and whispers something hastily. Well, that's clearly not good news. Look at his face! Right after the servant's message, Winter heads to the secret room and stares at the sky again. I don't know what he's seeing, but it doesn't look positive. My guess is that's got something to do with whatever Zasha's brewing. Speak of the devil, the young lord is taking a stroll through the gardens with Felix, looking unusually chipper. The alchemist asks if his plan has been going well, if he's managed to find out any more of Winter's weaknesses. As always, Zasha is annoyingly vague. He just says he's noticed some kind of pattern. It always seems like the Clements know what he's about to do one step before he does it. They also know his weaknesses, which becomes infuriating and causes most mages to give up and stop resisting at that point. But Zasha is far too stubborn for that. He was determined to find out the source of Winter's information. If he could figure out exactly how the young lord knows so much, then he could figure out how to hide his movements. And the only way to learn that was just by trying a bunch of different tactics and watching how the Clements react. Basically, he's been running a little experiment on them. And at last, he has a conclusion. I guess Winter knows about it too now. The only person who can't figure out what the heck is going on is Ingrid. Grace told her not to worry about it, so she's trying to figure things out for herself. Obviously, this has something to do with Zasha, which means it also has something to do with her. But what could it be? It's so frustrating. After Abby's visit, Ingrid became keen to try her new turquoise gem for herself, wondering if it might respond different when a real mage uses it. And what do you know, it does! When Ingrid uses the gem, it conjures a geometric barrier around her like a holographic shield. It's totally different to what happened with Abby, or maybe she just didn't notice. When she comes back inside, Ingrid runs into Grace, who invites her for some tea. Apparently, Winter has been out of the house on some important business, and both girls are clearly concerned for him. They're about to go and sit down when the man himself comes bursting through the door behind them. We've never seen Winter look so desperate. He's panting, disheveled, and covered in blood. Oh my gosh, is that his blood? I really, really hope it's not. Somehow, Grace can tell at once that her brother isn't injured and reassures Ingrid. Winter confirms that he's unhurt and tells them what happened. His carriage was attacked on the way back to the mansion. Apparently, this has happened before, which comes as quite a shock to Ingrid. The Clement territory is supposed to be peaceful. Far more peaceful than the busy capital, at least. Winter tells his sister someone got hurt and that he's going to bring everyone inside the mansion to be checked. Grace goes into older sister mode immediately and apologizes to Ingrid, promising to have their little tea party another day. There are clearly more important things to handle right now. The Clements head off, already dividing responsibilities between themselves. They don't look back until Ingrid yells out, offering to heal the sick and injured herself. Determined to be of use, she goes straight to the infirmary, where she finds the injured man in a lot of pain. She takes one of her jewels and places it on his chest, closing his wounds and putting him straight to sleep almost immediately. She does the same for the other two, impressing them with the strength of their magic. You know, it's a shame she's so determined not to cry. Those healing jewels alone could keep her rich for the rest of her life if she decided to sell them. Anyway, the men are very grateful for her powers and thank Ingrid a dozen times over while she awkwardly tells them to see a doctor too, just in case. Girl, just in case of what? You literally vanished the wounds into thin air. What is he gonna check? Winter finds her awkwardness adorable as usual and thanks her on behalf of House Clement, calling her the head mage of the Randall family. Ingrid doesn't take it very well and walks off while he thanks her again, a little more sincerely this time. He feels guilty for not being able to protect his own people and having to rely on her jewels. But Ingrid doesn't care about all that. She was only doing what she could to help, and she wants to do more. In future, she asks him not to keep secrets, pushing him to open up about whatever is going on between him and Zasha. Winter hesitates, but does admit that this latest attack was because of that red-headed douche. Just then, another servant comes running up to them with a vial of poison that Felix gave Zasha. Whoever attacked the carriage was carrying this on them at the time, but didn't get a chance to use it. There's no way to open it, but Ingrid has a hunch. She takes the vial in her hands and it starts to shine, proving that her guess was right. This is no ordinary poison. It was crafted from her very own tears. How messed up is that? Ingrid is long overdue in explanation, so Winter tells her about the recent bandit attacks the Clement territory has suffered. It's clear that Zasha is behind them, but that can't have been his main goal. A few bandits here and there isn't enough to weaken the famous Clement house. Rather, as Ingrid realizes, it seems more like he was using the attacks to test how far into the future Clement can predict. But when it comes to ambushes, if there are too many possibilities, Winter isn't able to catch every outcome before it happens. By now, Ingrid has realized that Zasha isn't just playing around. He must have a reason to be testing such a dangerous family like this. Plus, he was trying to cause some real damage by using Ingrid's own jewels against her. After a quick testing at the lab, the results prove she was right. The poison found with the bandits was made up of black diamonds and red jewels, but it wasn't designed to assassinate Winter. Actually, the bandits were ingesting it themselves, using it to make them more violent and more physically powerful. Understandably, Ingrid feels awful. How would you feel if you discovered something you made was being used to hurt and kill innocent people? It's just barbaric. Winter reminds her, of course, that the only person responsible is Zasha, not her. But even so, she stays awake at night, preoccupied with trying to figure out Zasha's next steps. No matter which way you look at it, Ingrid and her jeweled tears are at the center of this whole mess. So even if it's not her fault, she feels responsible for putting a stop to all these lies and violence. Deciding to take matters into her own hands, she sneaks out of the mansion late at night. As usual, Winter stops her at the door. I mean, come on, girlie. How exactly were you planning to run away from a guy who can literally see the future? Ingrid tells him she intends to stop Corneria. At least that way her jeweled tears won't be on the market, being sold illegally for people like Zasha to manipulate. Winter already knows she's not planning to return, so he gives her a warning. Corneria has developed a new ability, and until they know exactly what it is, it's dangerous for her to go after her alone. Ingrid is a little surprised, but it doesn't make sense. After all, she managed to shed a new tear in light of all this craziness. Why couldn't Corneria do the same? Despite this information, Ingrid turns to her host and promises not to let anyone hurt him. She would burn her whole family to the ground if she has to. Yes, finally! I still don't know why she didn't just do that the moment she got out of the tower. Hanging her head, Ingrid bids Winter farewell and starts to walk away. He wants to stop her, desperately, but as usual, he's stuck inside his own head trying to figure out all the possibilities rather than just speaking from his heart. Remembering his sister's words of advice, he asks Ingrid to join forces with him and share all their information. That's right, including his own ability. He's even willing to break generations of the Clement family secret just to keep her by his side. I would say it's cute, but let's be honest, this has been a long time coming. At this point, I'm more desperate to know than she is. Ingrid is also surprised he'd be willing to share such a dangerous secret with her. But seeing her ready to go like that, ready to take on the entire Randall household and risk her life just for him, she deserves to know. Plus, this way they will finally be able to fully trust each other. Winter takes her into the secret room and stands directly beneath the moon with one eye covered. This is his ability, moon reading. Yes, I know, it sounds a little kooky, but this basically means he can read everything the moon sees and hears. When secrets are spilled at night, even if they were spilled thousands of years ago, the moon will see it so Winter can see it too. That's how he knew a secret spell that could extinguish Zasha's flames, and how he knows so much about Ingrid's life before she left the tower. He used to hate mages, thought they were evil people who couldn't be saved. But then he watched Ingrid bring good to the world despite everything she had suffered, and he found a reason to live. Or, more accurately, somebody to live with. Okay, if Ingrid hasn't got the message by now, there's truly no saving her. She asks if he can see what happens in the daytime, and Winter admits he can't. Zasha seems to have realized that, since he's doing most of his sneaking around in the sunlight these days. So Ingrid comes up with an idea. Why don't they combine their powers, strengthening Winter's ability to moon read with her jewels? Information is power, after all. They need as much as they can get. A few days later, Ingrid visits Waldschmidt's estate. Zasha sent a particularly threatening letter to the Clement house asking her to visit. Obviously, she wouldn't just come of her own free will, so he told her about a new pet that he's acquired. This time, it's Felix, who he locked up on purpose to tempt her into coming to save him. Okay, I know she's a good person and all, but would Ingrid really walk into the lion's den just to save some random dude she's never met? And an evil alchemist at that. Grace and Winter were strongly against the idea, but they knew there would be consequences for refusing. So she obediently walked into the Waldschmidt mansion, where Zasha tied her up in the basement and warned her not to try and escape. Well, this isn't exactly how I was expecting things to turn out. Ingrid had her jewels taken away, and with her hands tied like this, she can't use her abilities even if she could cry. At least she has some company. Felix in the cell across from her introduces himself formally. Ingrid can't get a good read on him. It's hard to tell if he's a bad or a good guy. But one way or another, she's determined to save him. No one deserves to suffer Zasha's torture, and if Felix did that much work for him, he's almost definitely planning to kill him. Meanwhile, Winter is taking care of more bandits on his territory when Zasha comes to visit. He doesn't seem surprised that Winter handled the bandits so well. It seems he's finally plucked up the courage to come and face Lord Clement himself. But not without a trick up his sleeve, of course. Zasha told his guards to kill Ingrid immediately if he doesn't return, so Winter is basically stuck. Zasha wants to take this opportunity to use his magic and burn him to a crisp, but they've set this whole scenario up so that it looks like he was murdered by bandits. So Zasha draws his sword and attacks. They're barely 2 strikes in when Winter warns him not to keep fighting if he wants to keep his name and title. It turns out that when Winter's powers are combined with Ingrid's rubies, he can read the moon even in the daytime. They found out Zasha's plan days ago and took preventative measures. I mean, it's Winter. He never does anything without a backup plan. At that very moment, Ingrid is being rescued from the Waldschmidt estate, which means Zasha has no leverage against him and could even be arrested if he takes one more step towards Lord Clement. For a moment, it looks like they've got him, but then Zasha starts laughing like a true villain and pulls out a bunch of gems. He doesn't care about losing his honor or his house name. He just wants to be the most powerful mage in the world. And that means killing Winter at any cost. In one fell swoop, he lights the whole clearing on fire and summons a firebird. Yikes, I'm not even sure Winter can escape that one. Speaking of escape, Gaspar is turned up at just the right moment to free Ingrid. He also brought a pouch of her jewels, which she uses to free Felix, as promised. They head back to the Clement estate, having no idea the danger Winter is in at that very moment. Even his fire-extinguishing spells don't work anymore. On his knees, facing his last few moments, Zasha is about to deliver the killing blow when Ingrid arrives, ready to be his knight in shining armor for once. And she couldn't have picked a better time. Like, literally. 3 seconds later and Winter would have been a roasted Clement kebab. Winter stands bloodied and powerless against Zasha's overwhelming fire. His heart sinks with the weight of failure. Again, he cannot protect his loved ones. Zasha towers over him, mocking his weakness as flames flare overhead. As Zasha unleashes the final blow, radiant light bursts forth. A shimmering barrier blocks the flames. It's Ingrid. Her gemstone pulses with power. She steps between them, protecting Winter, who's covered in blood. Ingrid holds up her emerald gem, and Zasha's flames immediately turn on him, searing his body. Her words are like her emerald gem, reflecting the pain that Zasha had caused. Finally, he feels his victim's torment as he burns in an inescapable agony. Zasha stumbles, injured and enraged, as Ingrid watches him limp away. She then turns to Winter, worry written on her face, as she heals his wounds with glowing energy from her gems. Are you really going to let Zasha run away? Zasha may have run away from them, but Grace and the others have surrounded him, executing their plan to prevent his escape. That's a relief! His greedy obsession with power has turned him selfish and mad. Winter uses his ability of moon reading to channel his foresight. In its light, Felix waits in the shadows. Zasha, wounded, reaches him, hoping for aid, but Felix only smiles, mumbling about Zasha's failed plan. Felix feels Zasha's wound with his cane, and in that moment, Zasha's power shifts, leaving his body and flowing into Felix. He falls as he's left powerless, while Felix now holds the power of fire. The fight is over, but the story is just beginning. Corneria, Ingrid's sister, sits happily in an elegant chair. Her wicked smile shows how pleased she is after hearing that Lord Zasha has been imprisoned. As she talks with her maid, the maid listens with a frightful look. It seems like everyone fears her. She smiles with dark joy, not because she cares about Ingrid, but because she hopes that the happier Ingrid is, the more painful it will be when she's knocked down to hell. Corneria simply hates her sister and wishes for her pain and downfall. Meanwhile, at the estate, Ingrid and Grace are having deep conversations with each other. Apparently, Winter has told Ingrid about his power, the moon reading power that predicts and sees the future. Grace is amused at how Winter revealed this to Ingrid, something he never shares with others. She assumes Winter has finally decided to get married. Woohoo! Grace hugs Ingrid happily and welcomes her as part of the Clement family. Just then, Gasper enters the room calmly and Ingrid signals him for help. The idea of marriage overwhelms her, causing a blush to creep onto her cheeks. To her dismay, instead of helping, Gasper joins in. Grace cheers loudly with excitement, determined to prepare for Winter's and Ingrid's ceremony. Gasper smiles excitedly too, offering to help Grace with the preparations. Suddenly, Winter arrives right behind Ingrid. His presence reassures her, making her realize that it's okay to leave Grace be. He then tells Grace to back off, and as the two depart, he and Ingrid are left alone. Ingrid's blush subsides when she remembers Winter's injuries, but his repeated assurances give her some peace of mind. While they talk, she wonders about Felix, and as if reading her mind, Winter shares grave news. Zasha can't use his power anymore. Outside, Gasper and Grace walk side by side, with Gasper wondering if Winter and Ingrid will be all right. But Grace sighs, saying their past still hinders them like a thorn on each other. She believes that it's beyond her control, and she hopes that time might help. Beside her, Gasper chuckles softly, acknowledging her worries. He promises to make Winter and Ingrid happy, just for Grace's sake. How sweet! Meanwhile, Ingrid stands before Zasha in his cell, questioning if he truly lost his power. Zasha grips the bar with a crazy look, oddly relieved to see her. He then reveals that Felix stole his abilities and begs Ingrid to call him. However, Ingrid reminds him he's a criminal with no right to make demands. This silences Zasha. To Ingrid, Zasha is now nothing more than a mere mage, an empty shell without his powers. Ingrid presses on, asking who Felix really is. Unexpectedly, Zasha cooperates, revealing that he was once linked to a pharmacist, Felix's master. Upon learning that he was a mage fanatic, Ingrid begins to suspect that Felix may have dabbled in alchemy. Zasha continues, recalling his escape and how Felix stole his powers. But one thing confuses them. Why did Felix call it salvation when he stole Zasha's power? Elsewhere, rain pours heavily out of Winter's window. He lies on his bed, his thoughts only about Ingrid. Ingrid once mentioned that she wanted her powers to vanish, so it's only natural that she's interested in how Zasha lost his powers. Worried, he then sits up, thinking of Felix. He remembers Felix staring up at the moon before vanishing without a trace. Could it be that Felix drank something to mask his presence, even from moon reading? But then he realizes something that makes his blood run cold. Meanwhile, in the rain-soaked outskirts, Felix stares at his bloodied hand. He lets out a heavy sigh, longing to see Ingrid. The following morning, Winter and Grace are eating when Ingrid walks in. Winter glances at her, concern flickering across his face. Their attention shifts as Grace shares troubling news. There's been a wave of mage attacks in town. Although none were killed, the victims can no longer use their magic. Grace reminds them to stay vigilant, her tone laced with worry. But Ingrid and Winter fall into uneasy silence. If Felix is stealing powers, things could become dangerous for everyone. Ingrid's chest then tightens with guilt. She's the reason Felix escaped. Winter recalls the mage with Felix's eyes, the same one who murdered his father. Before that tragedy, several healer mages had lost their abilities. Now it all makes sense. That mage must have stolen the moon reading power after the murder. Ingrid senses the heavy tension and tries to soothe Winter's emotions, but his expression hardens as he pulls away, brows furrowed. He quickly apologizes, voice low with grief, and excuses himself to search for Felix. Ingrid is left behind instantly. Grace notices and gently suggests they buy some cakes to help lift her spirits. The two end up enjoying delicious food together. Just as they prepare to leave, a group of girls approach them, asking Grace to see their costumes for an upcoming play. Understanding how loved Grace is by the townspeople, Ingrid offers to take a stroll as she waits. While walking through the park, a dense mist begins to roll in. Too thick, too sudden. A perfect cover for someone trying to stay hidden. Ingrid senses it immediately. She stops, her heart racing. And then Felix steps out from the fog, claiming to miss Ingrid terribly. He looks like he's up to something. Moments before Ingrid and Felix's meeting, a drunken mage stumbles through the narrow alleyways. Unbeknownst to him, Felix watches from the shadows, striking him from behind and knocking him to the ground. Without hesitation, Felix draws a thin cut across the mage's hand, a way to steal the power of the mist for himself. With this power, he hopes to meet Ingrid for a while. At present, Felix reveals himself before Ingrid, a smile forming across his face as his longing for her lingers without waver. It's as if he wants something from Ingrid. Ingrid, however, is troubled. Felix senses her concern, not for herself, but for the mages he might harm in an attempt to steal their powers. He looks at her with sad eyes, but to him, this path is necessary for salvation. He recalls his mother's death by the hands of the mage's tyranny, which led his father to reinforce the idea that mages are unforgivable. Yet his teacher, the pharmacist, said that mages are wonderful people. Torn between these truths, Felix decides to see for himself. Zasha and Corneria, they were cruel tyrants. Meeting them made him agree with his father's ideas. Out of the blue, Felix produces a flame from his hands, one that Ingrid recognizes as the primordial flame. He continues speaking, stating that mages who are corrupted by power become arrogant, which means they need to be eliminated for salvation. However, Ingrid confuses him. She's a mage who used her jeweled tears to help, not harm. But Felix knows about her desire of ridding herself of her powers. If removing her powers brings her peace, then he will help her no matter what. It must be a trap. Felix understands that Ingrid's jeweled tears could be powerful in his hands. After all, her power brings pain to her loved ones, a burden she dreads more than anything. Though calm on the surface, Ingrid refuses to give up her powers, knowing he might use them against others. Then the truth emerges. Felix's father was the one who killed Winter's father. Breaking the silence that befell them, Felix, with a slight sincerity in his eyes, assures her he does not seek the death of other mages. He asks Ingrid to come with him, hopefully willingly. Whether with powers or none, he promises to remain by her side, but his words render her speechless. Before she can respond, mist envelops the air and Felix vanishes. Grace then calls out to her and they both return to the estate. Later, Ingrid sulks alone in her room. She doesn't fully understand Felix's true feelings and intentions, but she knows he's capable of getting rid of her powers as she desires. Whatever conflicts lies between Felix and Winter no longer matters to her. She knows that her powers have been the cause of her repeated suffering. Then, she remembers Winter's comforting words. He always wishes for her happiness, even when she couldn't wish it for herself. Moments later, Winter finds her with concern written all over her. All the while, Ingrid can't decide between Felix or Winter. Her heart remains divided. Meanwhile, in Randall's estate, Corneria lounges in a chair, boredom settling in. The memory of her sister's tear-streaked face brings her a twisted joy. A grin spreads across her lips as she devises a plan to visit her dear older sister, Ingrid. Uh-oh. Winter watches Ingrid closely, concern flickering in his eyes. He gently suggests sharing some tea time together to ease her mind, but Ingrid declines. She claims she's simply tired from going out earlier. In truth, something deeper weighs on her thoughts, something she cannot speak aloud yet. As Winter bids her goodnight and turns to leave, Ingrid suddenly asks if he still wishes for her happiness. In his mind, the answer is immediate. Of course he does. But as the words echo inside him, a faint blush creeps up his cheeks. He must have wished for her happiness with him. That night, long after the estate had gone quiet, Ingrid slips out alone. She makes her way through the forest, where a white horse awaits her. The horse carries a bottle of potion meant to mask her from Winter's moon-reading power. Although reluctant, Ingrid drinks the potion and mounts the horse, who takes her to Felix at the entrance of the Forgotten Lands. Did she choose Felix now? As they walk, laughter rings out ahead. A group of children appears, playing among the ruins. One small child runs to Ingrid, hugging her tightly and praising her beauty. Ingrid freezes for a heartbeat. Felix watches with a soft smile, then tells the children that Ingrid is a very important guest. These children, he explains, live here because they have no family. He has been caring for them in secret. They continue walking, entering an abandoned place stained with blood-stained floors. The air grows still as he turns to her. He asks if she's made her choice, and with quiet conviction, Ingrid nods. She's made up her mind. What could that be? Back at the estate, Winter stares into nothingness. From morning to afternoon, he doesn't move even when a gloomy atmosphere settles in. Grace watches her brother with worry as Gaspar tries to ease her thoughts, assuring her that everything will be fine. But Winter already knows. He can't follow Ingrid anymore. She must have gone to Felix. He decides to forget about her. As the head of the Clement family, his duty is clear. He must hunt Felix down, no matter what personal feelings remain. But you won't forget her. His deep thoughts break as the butler enters, announcing an unexpected guest. It's Corneria, Ingrid's sister. She sits on a sofa, claiming she wishes to see her sister. But when she learns that her sister has left, her demeanor changes instantly. Without shame, she becomes haughty, daring to tarnish Ingrid's image to Winter. She leans close, clinging to him, voicing out loud her desire to stay by his side. Winter abruptly pushes her arm away. Her charm is useless to him. With cold authority in his voice, he reminds her that she came uninvited, warning her not to speak nonsense. You can't fool him. Grace and Gaspar enter, their expressions unimpressed. Gasper mocks Corneria's pathetic attempt, snapping his fingers to summon his power. In an instant, Corneria vanishes and is sent back to her carriage. As Winter walks through the halls, his thoughts drift again to Ingrid. He realizes that what he truly wants is to bring her happiness, with his own efforts this time. He steps outside, a resolve building in his chest. But just beyond the gate is Ingrid. Her face is unreadable, and the air between them hangs still. Ingrid tells Winter everything. On her way to Felix's forgotten land, she had a dream, a memory buried deep within her. In it, she's a child again, locked in a cold, silent tower, left alone, forgotten by the world. Corneria appears in the memory, her smile cruel and triumphant. While Ingrid suffers in isolation, her sister lives freely, basking in admiration. Everyone believes that Ingrid is dead, so Corneria parades her stolen jewels as her own. The people praise her beauty and the jewels, unaware of the pain that fuels it. Ingrid, hidden away, is left to rot in the shadows. A dream, yet also the truth. When she wakes, she has already arrived at Felix's place. Felix, calm and expectant, assumes she's come to surrender her power. But he was wrong. She chooses to live with her power. She chooses to stay with those she loves and to walk forward instead of running away. That's my girl! Winter listens then. Without hesitation, he steps forward and pulls her into a warm embrace. His arms tighten around her as if anchoring her to the moment. He was so afraid of losing her and not being able to protect her from harm. Ingrid feels the warmth of his body and the trembling in his hold. A single tear escapes her eyes and falls, shimmering to the ground and transforming into a glowing emerald jewel. At peace, she closes her eyes, resting her head against him. But even now, deep inside, she knows that Felix won't give up, not until he gets what he wants. A dangerous determination. Before safely returning to Winter's arms, Ingrid remembers what came just before, Felix's rage. He couldn't accept her decision, so he intends to take her power by force. Without hesitation, he attacked, wielding the abilities he had stolen. The battle was fierce, debris crashing, the air shattering around them, but Ingrid remained steady in her resolve. Determined, Felix pressed on, certain she would break. When the fire settled, she stood unharmed, and that shook him. She couldn't bring herself to kill him, so instead she chose to confine him temporarily and flee. However, Felix didn't remain trapped for long. He broke through the magical shield, fury in his veins. His father was right. Mages are not to be forgiven. A mage himself, his father possessed a predator capable of stealing others' powers. Though his father was a mage, he despised the tyranny of those who murdered his wife, Felix's mother. Felix, in turn, inherited both power and hatred, growing up in a bleak, colorless town where grief shaped his every belief. He remembers his father's final mission, to take the Clement family's moon-reading power. He had failed, so the task now falls to Felix. Moon reading is the pinnacle of magical ability, and to seize it, Felix must first collect other mages' powers. If he can sever the bond between Winter and Ingrid, he can take the moon reading ability and naturally claim the jeweled tears. A calculated move. Back at the Clement estate, Ingrid knows Felix won't stop, and Winter knows it too. Now, more than ever, he must confront the past to protect the present and secure the future. As the head of the Clement family, his resolve burns with purpose. He'll definitely avenge his father's death. Out of nowhere, Winter asks if Ingrid has feelings for Felix. The question hangs in the air for a moment, but Ingrid doesn't flinch. She simply feels that Felix isn't like Zasha or Canaria. He's not cruel. His pain comes from the loss of his mother and from a father who died seeking revenge. That pain twisted his path. While Ingrid is in deep thought, Winter softens. A faint blush creeps down his cheeks and a gentle smile of relief flashes on his lips. He's just happy to see her back. For a moment, silence stretches between them, warm and unspoken. But it didn't last. Winter makes the decision to find Felix. Ingrid had returned on horseback, which means that Felix can't be that far. Hearing this, Ingrid insists on going with him, but Winter refuses. He won't risk her safety again. He calls Grace to stay by Ingrid's side and stop her if she tries to leave. As he leaves, Ingrid begs to go. Torn by fear for their fate, Grace quietly understands. They are still chained to the past. Until they confront it, neither can they move forward. With a sigh, Grace leaves to make tea, a small distraction just enough to give Ingrid a chance to escape. Of course, Ingrid seizes it. She pleads with Gasper for help, and with a grin, he uses his powers and sends her to the Forgotten Lands. Ingrid arrives as the children rush to her in worry. They're terrified and worried. A man with a sword, Winter, has gone after Felix. They don't understand everything, but they think Felix might not come back. Gently, Ingrid expresses how she'll do something about the situation, but first, they have to keep themselves safe. Elsewhere, Winter steps into the abandoned place where Felix is. As Felix introduces himself, Winter notes how his power of being a predatory mage is unfamiliar to him, probably because it wasn't registered in the mage list. The two engage in a hostile exchange, both recounting the death of their fathers. Though Winter's father did no wrong, Felix believes a mage's existence in itself is a sin. The tension snaps and their clash begins, a brutal fight backed by each of their unrelenting forces. Winter realizes Felix has more than just fire, mirage, and familiar magic. He wields water too, most likely stolen from other mages. Meanwhile, Felix acknowledges Winter's abilities. He might just need Ingrid's jeweled tears to overcome Winter. But Winter won't let that happen. He won't let Felix harm or steal the woman he loves. Despite the daylight, Winter uses his ruby jewels to channel his power to read the moon. The power allows him to predict Felix's movements with uncanny precision, giving him the upper hand as the battle intensifies. Then, with perfect timing, Winter sends Felix's cane flying across the room, leaving him without a weapon. Winter won the match! Unbeknownst to them, Ingrid had arrived at the scene. As she watched them fight each other, she became torn between her heart and morals. Felix has never killed anyone, and on top of that, there are children under his care. Meanwhile, Winter seeks justice, driven by duty and pain. She doesn't know where her place is between vengeance and mercy. Using her stone, Ingrid hopes to reach their hearts by summoning pleasant memories from their fathers. If they truly love their fathers, perhaps their distant memories could guide them now. A soft light glows around Winter as he recalls a tender moment with his family in a blooming garden. His younger self laughs alongside his mother, father, and sister beneath the sun-drenched flowers. Warmth replaces the tension in his heart. Meanwhile, Felix's vision is filled with the sound of his father's voice, longing to read his son bedtime stories. He feels the secure warmth of being wrapped in his father's strong arms as they both playfully tease each other, their laughter echoing softly in his memory. A bittersweet memory. Ingrid watches them, her expression pained as deep sadness washes over her face. Winter notices her change of emotions and instinctively pulls her behind him, shielding her from danger. He slowly sheaths his sword, realizing Felix isn't his father's killer. Though forgiveness may never come, both men understand that vengeance will only breed more sorrow. They must find a way to end this to move forward and find happiness. Ingrid knows that behind Felix's attacks lies deep guilt, admitting he never wanted any of this. They exit the abandoned house where the children wait tearfully, calling Felix's name. They rush into his arms and one of them glares at Winter. Ingrid smiles, remarking that the child clearly dislikes Winter, who only clears his throat in response. Felix asks Ingrid for help with the children, knowing they need adult guidance. When he speaks of leaving, Ingrid gently tells him it isn't necessary. She reassures him that there's another way. Felix wants to leave the children in Ingrid's care to atone for his sins, but she interrupts him. She explains that he hasn't directly hurt anyone, so he just needs to fulfill 3 conditions. Ingrid sets 3 conditions. He must give back the stolen powers, refrain from using his power again, and keep Clement's power as a secret sealed within him. Surprisingly, without hesitation, Felix agrees to it all. Winter, on the other hand, grumbles that Ingrid is being too kind, insisting they should follow the laws of magic. But Ingrid argues that Felix was imprisoned by Zasha for years and deserves a chance at peace. She reminds him that Felix is now the guardian to those children. Obviously, he can't be taken away from them. Winter's eyes drift toward the tearful children, calling out to Felix. When he looks back at Ingrid, his gaze softens with reluctant understanding. He sighs and agrees so long as they remain under his supervision. Hearing this, Felix is stunned by Winter's mercy. Ingrid smiles brightly as Winter watches her with quiet awe. He now understands that love means doing what brings joy to the one who holds your heart. He's so in love with her. Felix watches the two of them. His heart grows heavy as he wishes he could have met Ingrid earlier. He knows it's too late for him, but he silently prays for Ingrid's happiness. Their kindness is more than he ever hoped for. Someday you will find your own happiness, Felix. Later, Ingrid and Winter leave the Forgotten Lands on horseback. Ingrid thanks Winter for agreeing to her selfish request earlier. In turn, he tells her she has always been selfless and kind, and that's fine. At the Randall estate, Corneria enters her father's study and uses her manipulating charms, gaining her father's praise. With an evil smile, she leans to her father, asking him to do something for her. It's definitely a devious plan against Ingrid. In a quiet jewelry store, Chris receives praise for his craftsmanship just as Ingrid enters. She approaches him with a request to to craft a pendant using the blue jewel as a protective talisman she can always carry. But instead of asking for a large sum of money, Chris only asks for the aquamarine gem in return. He recalls how Ingrid used the aquamarine jewel, a memory that makes his cheeks blush. As she hands it over, Chris smiles brightly, treasuring the gem far more than any coin. For him, this exchange holds meaning beyond trade. Meanwhile, at the Clement estate, Ingrid wonders aloud where Winter is. He then emerges from his study just as she turns a corner, and for a moment their eyes meet. But Winter quickly glances away, his heart racing and a blush creeping up his face. Ingrid unconsciously takes his hand, and a sudden warm feeling spreads through them, making them blush. There's a quiet, tender, and uncertain moment that lingers between them, as if time pauses for a second. As she was about to say something to Winter, Grace rushed in, startling them both. Grace's face is troubled. She urgently tells them there's an emergency they must know about. Before she can continue, Ingrid's father suddenly appears without warning. Tension floods the room as Ingrid's expression hardens. It must be Corneria's plan. Her father steps forward, voice low and desperate, begging Irene out of the blue to lend him her power. Her brows furrow with suspicion as she takes caution. Something about this feels wrong, and every instinct tells her to be on guard. Corneria savors a cruel tea time, smiling as she envisions Ingrid's disgusted face meeting their father. Her maid, trembling, accidentally spills tea on the tablecloth. With a sharp slam of her hand, she screams at the maid. She demands to be admired, forcing affection from those who fear her. Her smile turns sinister as she declares she'll personally educate the maid with mischief sparkling in her eyes. Her soul surely reveals enjoyment in the suffering of others. Meanwhile, in the Clement estate, Ingrid's father fidgets nervously, asking her to lend her power. He explains Corneria's past naughtiness led him to lock her away, but when she got out of her room, her attitude turned domineering and used her jeweled powers against everyone. He admits the jewel manipulated him and others. Those who love Corneria deeply will hate Ingrid deeply as well. Ingrid sighs, recognizing her father's unchanging favoritism of Corneria, but she decides to help him despite knowing that he was threatened by Corneria. She's always a kind daughter, even after she has suffered for a long time. Later, Ingrid sees Winter using his moon-reading power to overhear the conversation between her and her father. Though worried, he chooses to support her decision. He stands by her even when he doesn't fully agree. Ingrid learns that Corneria possesses a new power, Black Onyx, a jewel that causes hallucinations. The danger Corneria poses grows ever more unsettling. In Randall's estate, Corneria uses the Black Onyx on her maid. The maid trembles in fear, begging her to stop. But Corneria only smiles, enjoying the terror while the maid screams under her jewel's power. Her evilness surely has no bounds. Corneria's maid collapses on the floor, screaming and trembling in fear. She smirks, satisfied. The Black Onyx gives her what she wants without playing the sweet girl facade. Yet despite using both powers, temptation and nightmare, she still can't land a final blow on Ingrid. Frustrated, she bites her finger, aware of the powerful jewels Ingrid holds. But she has a plan. Her eyes glint with malice as she grabs a knife, her thoughts impure. She decides to unleash her nightmare powers first and hunt Ingrid herself. At Clement's estate, Winter and Ingrid continue discussing Corneria's growing threat. Ingrid wonders if a ruby could block the effects of the nightmare jewel, but she knows that if the nightmare power is stronger, it can't be blocked. They need to plan and strategize. She then considers using the emerald jewel, hoping to turn the illusion back onto Corneria and force her to confront her sins. Still, Ingrid knows her father won't be pleased with her. Her eyes drift to the black diamond, wondering if one's death would truly end everything. Winter notices her silence and gently pulls her back from her thoughts. He asks what she was about to say earlier before Grace arrives to interrupt them. Ingrid pauses and asks Winter to hug her. Flustered, Winter freezes, surprised by her sudden request. As she tries to pull away in embarrassment, he wraps her in a back hug instead. Both of them blush with their heart racing. Cute! They finally pull away, exchanging shy smiles and laughter. Ingrid laughs harder as tears of joy form, turning into emerald jewels. With laughter and warmth still lingering, they hug again, this time tightly, as if the world pauses just for them. At the estate, Grace hands Ingrid a small package. Inside is the pendant Chris crafted for her, a beautiful necklace containing the blue jewel. As she clasps it around her neck, Grace suddenly pulls her into a tight hug, clearly worried. Ingrid gently assures her that she'll return safely from her visit to her father's estate. Gasper, listening to them all along, wants to join the hug, but Grace playfully blocks him. He admits he's jealous of their bond, making Ingrid laugh softly. A sweet moment highlighting their endearing family-like bond. Before leaving, Ingrid embraces them both, warmth and comfort wrapping around the three of them. Just as she's about to step into the carriage, Winter appears. He firmly insists on coming with her. He doesn't want her to face this alone. Oh, he's so protective. Ingrid protests, saying this is a matter between her and Corneria, and Winter shouldn't interfere. The two argue for a while, but in the end, Ingrid gives in with a sigh. Inside the carriage, she glares at Winter, but deep down she silently feels relieved he'll be by her side. His presence calms her. Alone with Winter, Ingrid pleads with him not to use his moon-reading powers. She knows that deep down, either she or Corneria may not make it out alive, and she doesn't want Winter to overlook that moment. When Ingrid enters the room, Corneria is already seated, dressed in dark clothing. She greets Ingrid with a cold voice and an insincere tone. She really hates Ingrid to the bone. The tension thickens in the air. It's no longer a conversation. It's the beginning of a final face-off. Corneria starts coldly, accusing Ingrid of abandoning her responsibilities as a daughter and doing the things she wants. Ingrid snaps back, saying Corneria also does things she wanted, manipulating everyone around her with her powers, and now she's alone because of it. Triggered, Corneria unleashes her hatred, her voice rising with bitterness. With a sinister grin, she reveals the black onyx, her nightmare jewel, and sends its power rushing towards Ingrid. But Ingrid is ready. She lifts her emerald jewel, reflecting the nightmare back. The power rebounds, forcing Corneria to see her own deepest nightmare. Ingrid, who is loved by the people she wanted. Yet instead of fear, Corneria laughs, twisted and cruel. Her hatred towards her grows. She feeds herself with hatred and jealousy. She refuses Ingrid's offer of peace. She sneers at the idea of a truce, saying she'll never allow Ingrid to be happy, and she'll do anything to achieve that even if it leads to bloodshed. The two clash, powers colliding into each other in a flash of light and dark. Ingrid summons her ruby jewels, launching fierce strikes, but Corneria is prepared. Her trap is set as she reveals more of her nightmare jewels as Ingrid falls into a swirling of nightmares. Inside the illusion, Ingrid is tormented by her memories. She sees everyone she loves, Abby, Grace, Gasper, and Winter, all gone because of her. Grief crushes her as guilt wraps around her like chains. But something inside her fights back. She realizes this isn't real. This is Corneria's doing. With courage, she breaks free from the illusion and returns to reality. Just as she regains her clear thoughts, she sees Winter lying on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her heart sinks. Corneria smiles coldly while Ingrid freezes in horror, unable to move. Earlier, Winter waits in a separate room, heart uneasy. He cannot use his moon-reading powers and feels helpless, so he chooses to watch from a distance. Deep inside, something doesn't feel right. His instincts scream that Ingrid is in danger. While Ingrid is trapped in Corneria's nightmare, Corneria silently approaches her with a knife. Just as she's about to strike, Winter stepped in, but Corneria's nightmare overwhelms him. Even with magical tools to protect him is useless. He falls into her illusion. Delighted, Corneria picks up the knife and stabs it into Winter's side. He collapses to the floor, blood spreading beneath him. As Ingrid escapes the nightmare, she sees Winter's body and gasps in horror. She rushes to heal him, but her jewel slips from her hand. Corneria steps in, shattering it completely. Ingrid drops to her knees, powerless and weak, as Corneria brings her to the tower, a place Ingrid dreads. Corneria laughs cruelly, full of malice, offering Ingrid ways to end her own life, stabbing her with a knife or maybe jumping off the tower. Ingrid trembles, tears sliding down her cheeks and turning into jewels. Her body weakens with painful memories. But just as she's about to give in, memories of those she loves flash before her. She remembers Grace's warmth, Gasper's humor, Abby's kindness, and Winter's quiet affection. Even if misfortune follows her, she decides to bear it. She will use her powers to protect others. Even if she dies, she will die with happiness with no regrets. It'll be a selfless, fulfilled sacrifice. Corneria laughs, her tears turning into jewels. But as Ingrid watches her, a realization dawns. Something within her shifts, and she knows exactly what she must do next. Corneria laughs wildly, towering over Ingrid with a knife in hand. Just as she strikes, a light flashes. The black diamond powers, turning the blade to dust. Caught off guard, Corneria stumbles, and Ingrid slaps her hard, leaving a burning mark. Seeing the black diamond, Corneria trembles, afraid it will reduce her to ashes. But Ingrid stops herself. She wants Corneria to live. Not out of mercy, but so she can suffer knowing she lost. Alone in the tower, Corneria falls into a delusion. She clings to the memory of Winter's death, imagining Ingrid broken. Her black tears fall like stones, each one feeding her twisted joy. As she returns to the estate, Corneria catches herself in a mirror. A black stain spreads across her face permanently. She screams in horror, seeing the monster she's become. She deserves it! Meanwhile, Ingrid runs to Winter, her heart racing with dread. She finds him lying motionless with blood pooling beneath him. Tears fall as she cradles him, her voice shaky while whispering his name. Then, Winter stirs. Eyes flutter open as he gasps for breath. Ingrid sobs with relief, holding him tightly. Her tears fall like rain, turning into jewels across the floor. Ingrid knows now that she's cut ties with the past. She's chosen to find happiness. A new chapter begins, not shaped by hatred, but by the light she now holds. Ingrid continues to cry until her tears finally run dry. Winter gently wraps his arms around her, holding her close. She leans into him, grateful for his protection, and he's equally thankful she returned. Later, Ingrid and Winter walk toward a hot air balloon waiting for them. As it rises into the sky, Ingrid stares at the moon, recalling her first ride with Winter. She cried back then, but now she smiles, enjoying the moment by his side. She apologizes for her past rudeness, but Winter chuckles, assuring her it was just that she was cautious. As the air stills, he takes her hand and leans in for a kiss, only for a man to suddenly interrupt them. Ugh! Back at Clement's estate, Grace practices with her sword, distracting herself from the worry weighing on her. Gasper approaches with a playful grin, suggesting they spend time together instead of waiting in silence. Grace agrees for a lighthearted duel. Grace stands in a ready stance while Gasper uses his powers, surprising her with a burst of flowers. Blushing, he offers them to her, his words soft and teasing. Grace smiles, touched by his thoughtfulness. Such a tender affection. Later, a carriage arrives. Still holding hands without realizing, Grace thanks Gasper for everything. As Ingrid and Winter step down, Grace runs forward and hugs Ingrid tightly, her face lighting up with joy as they welcome them. At a social party, Ingrid walks beside Grace, who's feeling hesitant, but Grace gently reassures her with the words she needs to hear. Ingrid agrees with a sigh. Though still uncertain, she stays on the sides without anyone asking her for a dance. Suddenly, a group of cheerful ladies, Grace nearby, approaches Ingrid. Delighted, they pull her into a conversation, teasing that men avoid dancing with her due to Lord Winter. The teasing continues as they ask if she's truly engaged to him, leaving Ingrid blushing. The mysterious relationship between Ingrid and Winter is the topic of discussion in social gatherings, only to realize why Abby wrote to her. Everyone watches, hoping for something more between them. The party continues. Grace dances with Gasper while the other ladies join their partners. Ingrid slips out onto the balcony. She sits on the railing, lost in thought about Winter, what he truly feels, and whether she sees him as a family, or something more. Suddenly, Winter appears behind her and gently holds her to stand, making her jump in surprise. He wasn't supposed to come, yet here he is. He confesses he couldn't bear the thought of another man asking her to dance. He's jealous. Ingrid, with a racing heart, softly admits she just wants to be happy. With him. Blushing, Winter leans and kisses her as she kisses him back. In that quiet moment, their love is finally shared. Not their words, but through the truth of their hearts. Finally, they kissed! As the season changes, Winter and Ingrid become officially engaged. One bright morning, Ingrid wakes up feeling at peace. She's finally found where she belongs, in a place where she's truly loved. Later, she meets Winter in the hallway. Like a devoted fiancé, he tells her he's heading out, then kisses her cheek in a farewell. Blushing, Ingrid wonders if she'll ever get used to his affection becoming part of her daily routine. Peace has returned to the territory. Zasha is back at his estate but remains punished, stripped of both power and position. Felix, who once stole Zasha's power, has now opened an orphanage under the protection of the Clement family. Corneria, however, hasn't left her room since the final battle. The corrupted jewels have left her powerless and disfigured. At breakfast, Grace, Gasper, and Ingrid share a warm moment. Grace then hands Ingrid a letter from Abby as Ingrid stares at them. Grace and Gasper still claim to be just friends, though their lingering glances suggest feelings left unspoken. They talk about their next trip, asking Ingrid where she wants to go. She replied with a soft smile. She's fine to travel everywhere as long as she's with them. She finally finds happiness. Day turns night. Ingrid hears a noise and steps outside her room, seeing Winter. He offers his hand as they stand beneath the moonlight. He makes a vow. He can't promise her a life without pain, but he'll always be there to wipe away her tears. Ingrid smiles and kisses him. One jewel falls from her eye. For the first time, she is loved from the bottom of her heart. Through battles, heartbreak, and healing, Ingrid finds where she truly belongs. Not in a perfect world, but in one where love endures. With winter by her side and laughter among friends, she no longer cries from sorrow. Her tears, now jewels, mark the beginning of a life built on hope, love, and happiness. Finally, a worthy conclusion. One of happiness, cherished moments, and the sunshine after hardships. Ingrid's story comes to a close. We hope you've enjoyed this retelling of The Precious Girl Does Not Shed Tears. Stay tuned, and see you next time for more manhwa recaps.